2002, Joyce Soa was the perfect example of an independent woman who had successfully climbed the career ladder in the nation's capital.
I had worked with the Secret Service, and then I moved to Treasury, and I became the Chief of Staff to 3 different political appointees there. I had the most rewarding career in the government. I was making very good money.
The vivacious 53-year-old had never been married, instead choosing to dedicate her life to her career. That summer, Joyce was set to retire by the end of the year and was looking forward to enjoying the fruits of her labor.
I was living in a townhouse in Alexandria, and I wanted to move. I was really looking for an investment property.
As Joyce cruised through her neighborhood one day that August, she noticed a real estate sign for new homes being built nearby.
I found the name of the agent and left a message, called me back, and we talked for a bit.
Hey, I just got your message that you're interested in one of the houses.
He sounded so cute, and it was just an immediate connection that I felt with him.
His name was Bryant Parker, and as they set up a meeting, Joyce couldn't help but feel some undeniable magnetism at play.
He said he would come over and show me the houses. I was really excited about meeting him.
When Bryant arrived, Joyce was pleased to see his face matched his voice.
My pleasure.
I opened the door and I thought, oh gosh, he's gorgeous.
Are you ready to go look at your new house? Let's go do it.
I am.
I'll tell you what, I'll drive.
When Joyce mentioned that she was interested in purchasing a country home as well, Bryant told her he'd be happy to help with her search.
I wanted to buy a house in Middleburg because I was always into the horse scene and I'd go to the races. And it was like a 40-minute drive from my townhouse.
I'm gonna find you that perfect place.
From there, the pair spoke daily about real estate. And it wasn't long before those chats morphed into marathon conversations about their lives.
You're reading my mind.
She was very interested in him. He had outgoing personality, you know, he was in sales, and they just seemed to go together so well.
So one night, Joyce took a chance and invited Bryant over for dinner.
And we had a bottle of wine. We just sat there and had a blast.
Although, Joyce was disappointed to learn that Bryant was only recently separated from his wife of 16 years, with whom he had a 12-year-old son.
He didn't want to separate from his wife because they had a son. His soon-to-be ex-wife was moving up to Pennsylvania. I didn't want to date somebody that was just separated because it takes a while to go through it. And so I was really leery about that.
But Joyce remained encouraged by the fact that Bryant seemed to want to see her more frequently.
He was coming over for dinner once a week. I could just feel the heat from his body. I was just really attracted to him.
Joyce was especially overjoyed when one night after dinner, Bryant finally made a move.
It was just like night and day between kissing anybody else.
From that moment on, all uncertainty vanished. And in the fall of 2002, when Bryant helped Joyce close on her beloved country home, the two were inseparable.
Bryant seemed like a pretty nice guy. And Joyce seemed to be happy. And I respected him because he was with Joyce.
The physical, the emotional, the spiritual, just everything was there.
Well, she knew what she wanted.
I thought, I am falling in love with him.
But Joyce had no idea that she'd given her heart to a ticking time bomb, and her future with Bryant would explode in a horrific conclusion she never saw coming.
I was in total shock. I could not believe it.
I thought, who does that?
The blood just started pouring, and the look on his face was horrid.
In the fall of 2002, Joyce Soa was excited to start sharing her life with Bryant Parker.
We just had so much fun. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get married to him, but I knew that we would somehow be together.
Still, Joyce couldn't help but notice that his relationship with his soon-to-be ex-wife was becoming problematic.
No, don't tell me to calm down. I'm not mad.
They would get in these violent arguments over the phone.
No, it's not okay. That's my son. What the hell is wrong with you?
He was going through a very rough separation.
I know, it's not easy.
I was being very understanding. I told him you need to work things out with her so that you have a mutual understanding about seeing your son. And things calmed down a lot.
When Christmas rolled around, Joyce vowed to get into the holiday spirit until Bryant dropped a bombshell.
Hey.
I'd scheduled a Christmas party, and he tells me he can't make it.
Hey,
And I said, what do you mean?
It's our first Christmas together.
my ex wants me to spend some time with my son. So I'm gonna go see him.
Joyce was uncomfortable with Bryant staying at his ex's, but didn't want to deny him the chance to see his son.
I understand. You should go.
This is the typical thing that people go through when they're going through a separation.
But when Bryant decided to go back to his ex's on Valentine's Day, Joyce couldn't help but wonder if something more was going on.
Just go.
I'd called a dear friend of mine, and I said, Bryant went to where his ex-wife was living on Valentine's Day. I said, do you think he had sex with her?
Yes, absolutely.
And I was like, oh my God.
2 days later, Bryant returned.
Ryan, did you sleep with your ex?
And I looked him in the eye, and he said yes. I was just totally devastated. I didn't say anything. I picked up my purse, and I went into work. He tried to call me on my cell phone, which I wouldn't answer.
That night, Joyce stayed at her townhouse in Alexandria. She refused to take the dozens of calls from Bryant explaining the alleged encounter.
I know that I messed up bad.
But she knew she couldn't ignore him forever.
He said, I need to explain what happened.
I fell for it.
I'm so sorry.
I know they had the son together, but he was dating Joyce. I mean, he shouldn't have been doing that. That was wrong.
It'll never happen again.
He said it was over with her. He said, I told her I was coming back to you for good.
To prove it, Bryant told Joyce he wanted to get married after his divorce was finalized in 2 months.
I love you, Joyce.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Perhaps against her better judgment, Joyce found herself relenting.
He had a good job, and we just had so much fun. I knew he was the one. And so at that point, we decided to get married.
When I found out she was getting married, I thought it was going very fast, but she was ready, and Joyce has always known what she wants.
The couple decided to tie the knot that April, once Bryant was officially divorced and Joyce was due to retire from the government. But the day before their wedding, Bryant came home with some bad news.
They fired.
Bryant was working through a real estate company that worked with the builder. And he got in an argument with the builder.
We had a difference of opinion about money.
Joyce decided to look at the positive side. Maybe it was all a blessing in disguise.
I had my retired pay, and I had gone to a consulting firm where I was making actually very good money. So what we decided is to let him set up a real estate office.
I think it's a fabulous idea.
The next day, after 9 months together, the two exchanged vows in a small private ceremony.
Oh, I was thrilled. We had decided to get married in the house, and when you opened up the front window, it had a view of this farm, and it was just gorgeous.
That July, the newlyweds celebrated their union with a lavish trip to London, and Joyce was more than happy to cover the cost. But as soon as they returned, it seemed the honeymoon was definitely over when Joyce saw an entirely different side to her husband.
I didn't know that he was capable of something like that.
He was completely crazy.
You're so stupid.
He was like Jekyll and Hyde.
In the summer of 2004, Joyce Soa was happy to help her new husband, Bryant Parker, start his own real estate company after he was fired from his job.
I paid the rent. I bought him the computer. I spent $25,000 setting up the office.
But despite her help, it seemed as if a switch had flipped in Brian's personality, starting with his work ethic.
He never sold one house, never sold a piece of property. He wasn't making any money. We started arguing.
They keep mounting up.
Because, well, I was paying for everything. I wasn't making enough money to keep up with the bills. I was horrified. I thought, now what are we gonna do?
Joyce was starting to seriously worry about her husband, especially after 2 years, when Brian's real estate business flopped entirely.
Bryant was really drinking a lot. He got depressed. His self-worth had gone down. I could tell that he wasn't happy.
Joyce struggled to support Bryant over the next few years as he bounced from one job to the next. But his excessive drinking was beginning to take its toll.
He was verbally abusive with me. He would call me names.
You're such a cow. You're so stupid.
He would yell at me and scream, and, he apologized, but then the drinking continued.
Desperate to set her husband straight, on December 1st, 2009, Joyce told Bryant that she wanted a separation.
I said,
I'm giving you a year.
clean up your act, quit drinking, find a good job. I said, you gotta just take care of yourself and do what you need to do.
Fine, Joyce.
Bryant moved out of the house and in with family members.
I was happy that she had kicked him out, but she looked frail, lost a lot of weight. I was very concerned.
But by the following year, it was clear their separation was not having the effect on Bryant that Joyce had hoped.
He was drinking even more. He had no money.
That September, Bryant admitted himself to a local psychiatric ward in Virginia. Though she was proud of Bryant's decision to enter rehabilitation, Joyce wasn't sure their marriage could be saved.
I always believed that you stay in your marriage. But I had gone through all the abuse, all the drinking. He just had changed so much. I decided I was going ahead with divorce.
In November 2011, after he was discharged from the psychiatric ward, Joyce finally felt Bryant was strong enough to move forward with divorce proceedings.
He called me up and he started screaming at me.
What is this, Joyce? What is this you just sent me?
And then he said, I don't want a divorce.
I am not dying!
I could tell he was drunk. And he just started screaming at me again.
You can kiss my goodbye. You are a piece of
Either he was crying uncontrollably and saying how he missed her so much, or you can go to hell, I don't need you.
I'll find somebody else.
It was phenomenal, the number of calls.
So finally, one day I picked up the phone. He said he wanted to come see me about the divorce.
At the very least, Bryant told Joyce he could help her prepare the house for the winter by chopping wood and turning off the pipes.
I didn't know how to do that stuff, and I said, yeah, come on up, let's work around the house.
After 8 years of marriage, Joyce agreed to one last meeting on December 1st, 2011, just 1 month before their divorce would be final.
He told me he had cleaned up his act.
Off the booze.
He said, I have nothing.
I'm nothing without you.
I said, I just can't do it anymore.
You know, Brian, I really hope we can be friends.
But our marriage is over.
I understand.
It was getting dark. And so he didn't turn off the faucets, he didn't help me cut wood, and he said, well, the next day he would help me.
Oh, I'll stand in with you.
Joyce went to sleep feeling as though she may have made some headway with Bryant.
I opened up my eyes, and he was standing over me with a knife.
What are you doing?
And what Bryant did next would change Joyce's life forever.
Hello, this is 911.
I killed my wife.
In the early morning of December 2nd, 2011, Joyce Soa woke to her worst nightmare.
What are you doing?
He was silent, and the look on his face was horrid.
What are you doing?
It felt like a brick had just slammed into me. I couldn't breathe. I reached over and grabbed the phone. I dialed 911.
My husband's killing me.
And when I said that, he stabbed me in the back. I mean, he was out to kill me. I don't know how, but I got the knife away from him, and then I knew I had to get away.
Hello?
Hello, this is 911.
I killed my wife.
Okay, sir, stay on the phone with me.
Strangely, Bryant did as the 911 operator instructed, holding a cloth on Joyce's chest wound to stop the bleeding.
He could have run away, but he knew that she had implicated him.
Police, let me see your hands! Let me see your hands!
Police immediately arrested Bryant, charging him with attempted first-degree murder as EMTs worked to frantically save Joyce's life.
I need a helicopter right away!
They flew her to a trauma center, and they were able to save her life.
When Joyce finally awoke after major surgery, she was told the knife had missed her heart by inches.
It collapsed my lungs. I was not only bleeding to death, but I couldn't breathe. I'm really lucky to be alive.
I was in total shock. I didn't know that he was violent, that he was capable of something like that.
As Joyce's body healed, she struggled to make sense of Bryant's actions, despite glimpses of his anger over the years with her and his ex-wife.
He was just verbally abusive. I never, ever would have dreamed that he would have tried something like this, ever.
On September 4th, 2013, after 3 failed attempts to be found mentally unfit for trial, Bryant Parker accepted a plea deal and pled guilty to 1 count of malicious wounding.
I didn't think he was mentally ill. I think, honestly, it was to get whatever he thought it was still in his name. Because he was broke, he had no money, and the divorce was going to be final in January.
She was his meal ticket. He didn't have to work. He had this beautiful house. And then when he realized it was going to be all over, he was desperate.
I think he thought, kill her, I'll get off, mental illness. I think he knew what he was doing.
On October 1st, 2013, Bryant Parker was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with 4 years suspended.
That 4 years suspended was because he put the cloth on her to stop the bleeding, which might have contributed to saving her life.
Whatever made Bryant snap, Joyce knew for sure she'd witnessed the slow descent of a madman.
I was very angry. I had put up with Bryant losing every job, not contributing any income, drinking. He was a bum, and he had bled me dry.
In the years since she was attacked, Joyce has remained on disability and still suffers from PTSD.
Every day, I woke up. First thing in my mind was the stabbing. They tried to murder me. I was lost for 2 full years. I didn't know what to do with myself.
She always have been a strong woman. I think that is prevailing now. She's getting stronger.
Now, Joyce has found a way to channel her experience as a domestic abuse victim's advocate.
I speak about once a month, and I relive everything that happened to me so that people can learn from my mistakes.
Growing up in Prunedale, California, 15-year-old Carrie Rogers thought nothing was cooler than cruising the main drag with her friends.
We'd kind of just go 5 miles an hour. We just just listen to music and just kind of hang out. I wasn't looking for anything other than that at 15.
In the summer of 1991, when one of her friends introduced her to 18-year-old Lonnie Keith from a neighboring school, Carrie couldn't help but notice his flashy car.
It's a really nice car. My friend asked him if he would take me for a cruise, and he said yes.
Can we go for a ride?
He was older, I liked his car. There was definitely something about him that caught my eye. At the end of our time together, I just gave him my phone number.
I'm calling you.
And I wanted to hang out more.
Before long, a romance took off with no stop sign in sight.
She brought him over, and I liked him right away. He was a nice kid. He was friendly, just a good guy.
Over the next 2 years, the high school sweethearts spent as much time as they could together. When Carrie graduated high school and Lonnie enrolled at a university 2 hours away, she knew she'd be following him there.
Thought that would be really fun to finally be able to just have an adult relationship. So I was really excited.
In September of 1994, the two moved into their new apartment, ready to live life in the real world.
I worked at a grocery store, so I bought all the groceries. It was a lot of fun kind of playing like a married couple.
Of course, their relationship had the telltale signs of any young couple figuring things out for the first time.
I found that I was the only one cleaning and cooking, so we had arguments. But I had to just bite the bullet, and we had to just compromise.
You're right. I'm sorry. All right, from now on, I'll make time. I'll try and help, all right?
Yet 6 months later, Carrie and Lonnie were arguing over more than just dirty dishes.
I walked in one night and saw Lonnie watching porn on TV, and I was livid.
Lonnie, why are you watching this?
It's not my fault. I invited my friend over. He said he wanted.
You guys are watching porn again?
Lonnie claimed the videos weren't his.
So,
It only just started.
I want you to stop this, Lonnie.
Absolutely. Come on, you know me. It won't happen again.
But when Carrie caught Lonnie watching porn several more times by himself, she felt she couldn't ignore this new habit.
I just felt really disrespected. Here I see these beautiful girls. I'm thinking, wow, it must be me, it must be me.
I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving, Lonnie.
Hey, come on.
Carrie moved to Paradise, California to be near her mother and attend beauty school. Still, despite the geographical distance between them, Carrie and Lonnie were never truly apart.
I definitely missed him, but we talked every night.
When Carrie suggested Lonnie start taking classes at Chico State University, just like that, the two were back together. The young couple moved into an apartment 20 minutes from the campus, and this time they wanted to make it serious.
We've been talking about getting engaged, and I was excited to take it to the next step and to be Lonnie's wife.
Unfortunately, the engagement wasn't a magic cure-all for the couple's issues.
I would wake up in the middle of the night, and Lonnie wouldn't be there. So I crept into the living room as quietly as I could and caught him watching the pornographic material again.
What are you watching?
Nothing. What are you doing up?
Then quickly he'd try to turn it off, but I knew what it was. I wasn't stupid.
When Carrie discovered she was pregnant that October, Lonnie's bad habits no longer seemed like a deal breaker.
I told her a lot of people do watch it, and that didn't really bother me that much.
That summer, the soon-to-be parents said their vows in a small ceremony at a local park. 3 weeks later, Carrie gave birth to a baby boy.
It was neat to see Lonnie be so excited about being a dad. It was just a really fun time.
But Carrie's happiness would be short-lived when she discovered that old habits die hard.
He was a monster. Everybody was totally shocked.
I was sick to my stomach. I thought, this can't be happening.
In the summer of 1998, newlyweds Carrie and Lonnie Keith were thrilled to welcome a son into the world.
We had a whole new role being parents and not just a couple anymore. We were now a family. So that was really neat.
By 2002, they welcomed 2 more children into their growing family. After graduating and becoming a physician's assistant, Lonnie began working countless hours at 2 medical centers, one in Chico, the other 35 minutes away in Oroville.
The hours were very grueling. He went to work at one hospital in the morning until about 4 or 5, and then went to the other hospital around 7.
After the birth of their 4th child in 2010, it seemed the steam was hissing out of their relationship.
I was home with 3 preteens and then a newborn. It was a lot of work. He was hardly home. I felt like a single mom. I can't keep doing this.
You don't help around the house. Something's gotta give, Lonnie.
We were not intimate anymore. Just can't keep going on.
I know it's tough right now, but once we're out of debt, it's gonna be a lot easier. You just have to stick with it.
So it made me think, okay, maybe I could just suck it up and just deal with it.
One day that October, just before Halloween, Carrie's husband received an unusual text message.
I wanted to play on his new phone, but when I was on it, I intercepted a text. What it said was, send me a picture of you and the kids in their costumes. I said, what is this?
You can't see it, okay? It's work stuff.
And I said, okay, like, that didn't sound like a work-related topic whatsoever.
It's work-related.
Something told me, that it wasn't right.
That night, Carrie decided to look into their phone records.
I came across a number that had come up quite a bit in the last, couple of weeks. So I went ahead and called it.
You reached Natalie. Please leave a message.
I immediately started yelling at him, asking him what it was.
What is this?
What are you doing?
Are you having an affair?
No, it's not what you think.
I don't believe you.
We're just friends. She's a coworker.
There's nothing, we just text.
Completely rattled, Carrie couldn't get beyond her suspicions of Natalie.
I found out where she lived, and I went to her house.
I just kept thinking, Lonnie wouldn't do that. But Carrie kept trying to find evidence of him cheating.
What are you doing here? I am not having an affair with your husband. I know you're seeing him. Leave me alone.
Carrie wasn't proud of her actions, but she was determined to get to the bottom of the gut feeling she had that Lonnie was lying. And she was finding plenty of other bizarre things to question.
One day I went into the garage. I just started kind of looking around for a box that had old VHS tapes. I found zip ties, thigh-high nylons, and a syringe that had fluid in it. I definitely thought that was weird.
What is this?
He said, the nylons, those are yours, and the needles, those are left over from the night before, left in his lab coat, and he forgot to discard it.
The zip ties are for basic stuff that I'm doing around here. I mean, look at this.
Why are all these things hidden?
Lonnie confessed he felt the need to hide everything from Carrie because she made such a huge deal out of even the smallest things. But Carrie knew better.
I thought that the items were for his mistress. I thought they were doing weird things.
I say, gosh, Carrie, you're being really hard on him. He's working the late shift. He's tired. I go, you're nagging on him. I go, back off. Just let it go.
With 4 kids to care for, Carrie felt she had no choice but to trust her husband.
I had nothing else to go on. He had the perfect answer to every single question.
1 year later, it was getting even harder for her to believe her husband when an unexpected package arrived in the mail. And what Carrie found inside made her heart skip a beat.
I couldn't believe that he would do anything like this.
It was literally making Carrie go crazy.
I just had had enough, and I wanted answers.
December 2011, Carrie Keith was having a tough time believing her husband Lonnie was faithful, especially after an odd package arrived in the mail.
When I opened it, there were women's thigh-high nylons with lace at the top. And I said, "What is this?"
Well, listen, it's not what you think.
He said they were for me.
It was a Christmas present.
That was something that he liked me to wear on occasion. So I just figured he'd pick them out.
Why in the world would I ever cheat on you?
Lonnie was saying and doing all the right things, including insisting they see a marriage counselor. But none of it was sitting well in Carrie's gut.
Lonnie said that this other woman and him never had an affair, but in the back of her mind, she still felt that Lonnie was lying.
When the new year came, Carrie suggested Lonnie move out while they attend counseling to give her some space to think. It didn't last long.
Kids miss you.
The pair remained in close contact, working on their marriage together.
I'm gonna try to change. I'm gonna stop snooping.
I want to make this work.
Carrie allowed Lonnie to move back home in May 2012.
He was starting to be more caring. They were going to counseling, and I thought, well, maybe it was working.
But it always seemed that just when Carrie had gotten a grip, something else would happen to send her back into a tailspin. That August, Carrie awoke in the middle of the night with a strange feeling.
Lonnie wasn't there. I thought he should have been home by now. So I quickly got on my phone, and there was a tracker that came standard with the phone, and I just started tracking him.
Her husband was nowhere near his job.
He was in downtown Chico. I immediately thought of the mistress. My first thought was, she moved to Chico.
Furious, Carrie called Lonnie, who insisted he was 35 minutes away in Oroville at work.
I said, "Really? Because I see you right now."
You're in downtown Chico.
All of a sudden, I started seeing the dot move on the way to the freeway to head south, back to work.
I can see you moving.
I'm at the hospital.
Why don't you prove to me that you're at work? Why don't you call me on the landline?
40 minutes later, Lonnie did just that, but Carrie knew what she had seen.
He calls from an Oroville work phone number and says, "Look, I'm here." And I'm, thinking to myself, well, yeah, because you drove back. He explained, "Oh, these GPS things, they mess up all the time."
Why are you lying to me?
I was very frustrated. I just didn't trust him. It felt like he was definitely messing with my mind. And there were times where I would go into my bedroom and just cry.
Carrie wondered if she was going crazy, but she wouldn't worry much longer.
I had woken up at 6 in the morning. I texted Lonnie and I said, "Another late night," and I didn't hear from him.
Carrie got dressed in a hurry, convinced she knew where he was, at his mistress's.
I wanted to catch Lonnie in the act. I just needed to see his car. I had to finally have the proof. I opened up the garage and...
Are you Carrie Keith?
Yes, officer.
I saw a Chico police officer. I thought that Lonnie was in a horrible accident. I couldn't believe that this could be happening. I was terrified.
On the morning of January 27th, 2013, Carrie Keith feared the worst as police swarmed her front yard.
I asked the police officer, what's going on?
Has there been an accident?
We can't talk about that right now, but we'll talk.
Come on inside.
When detectives explained what was happening, all Carrie could do was sit in stunned silence.
The Chico Police Department had been engaged in an ongoing investigation, kidnappings and sexual assault cases that had been taking place at Chico State.
Over the last 2 years, 11 assaults were reported around the Chico State campus. Police set up surveillance, and the previous night they noticed a car cruising the area for over an hour.
Investigators watched the vehicle, and when it failed to come to a complete stop at a stop sign, they had probable cause to pull the car over, and they made contact with the driver, who happened to be Lonnie Keith.
Good evening.
Great, what brings you to the area?
I know, just driving back from work.
They noticed some blankets in the backseat area of the car, which was significant because one of the victims said the car that she had been put into as being like a cave of blankets.
Mind if we take a look around the vehicle?
The officers were alarmed by what else they found.
They found syringes loaded with clear liquid. There were 2 pairs of nylons. They also located athletic tape.
Can you explain what's going on over here? Yeah, I'm a physician's assistant.
Police didn't buy it. Instead, they brought Lonnie to the station for further questioning.
The stockings were significant because the victim had said that the person that grabbed her off the street was wearing a stocking over his face. 2 remembered being zip-tied and tape being used on their mouth or their eyes and being injected.
When police obtained a search warrant, they discovered more disturbing evidence.
There were zip ties found in the trunk of the car, leg restraints, and handcuffs. There were vials of Haldol and diphenhydramine. And in combination, it basically knocks a person out.
Officers immediately arrested Lonnie, charging him with rape, assault with intent to commit rape, and 2 counts of kidnapping.
We believe that everything was ready to go. The car was set up, the windows were covered, the syringes were loaded. All he needed to do was find somebody.
Carrie was completely dumbfounded. Her husband of 16 years was a stranger.
I thought, this can't be happening. You have the wrong person. But then I started to really think back on the things that I'd found.
And Carrie couldn't forget the night Lonnie's GPS tracker placed him near the Chico University campus.
I feel like that night he could have been on the prowl looking for a young girl. I was sick to my stomach just thinking that my husband could be responsible for this.
I don't understand.
I think I had on these blinders. Every time I found something, I thought, oh, that's for the mistress, almost like she was a decoy.
Your husband's been having an affair with a woman at work.
To make matters worse, Carrie's suspicions about the affair were also true. Lonnie's co-worker Natalie admitted to sleeping with Lonnie for over a year.
Lonnie would always make me feel like I was the crazy one, like I was just looking for things to be wrong. But it was exactly what I thought, and then some.
Just before Lonnie's trial, the police were able to link Lonnie to a 3rd assault that occurred before the other 2 in the spring of 2012.
We were just trying to get through the first 2 and then to have a 3rd one pop up. Everybody was totally shocked.
We all believe that Lonnie was responsible for more than the 3 that he was charged with.
I can't even wrap my mind around it.
A former Chico physician's assistant changes his plea to guilty today.
In August of 2014, Lonnie accepted a plea deal, copping to 3 counts of kidnapping and 1 count of forceful rape.
Lonnie's DNA was found on one of the victim's underwear. He couldn't lie his way out of it.
Lonnie Keith was sentenced to 26 years in a California state prison.
He took away a lot of our hopes and our dreams. It is a good thing that he's in a place where he can't hurt anybody anymore. It's just a sad thing that it had to come to this.
Carrie still doesn't know for sure what changed in Lonnie.
It saddens me to think that Lonnie was this guy that maybe I didn't even know.
In that picture right there?
I've never been able to get answers from Lonnie. He still won't admit that he is behind the rapes, even though he did take a plea. He will not take responsibility for this.
Perhaps one day she'll find the answers, but in the meantime, Carrie's determined to move forward in life.
Carrie's been set free because she knows where he is, can't lie, and he can't hurt anybody anymore.
I have 4 kids. Without them, I probably would have given up, but I think they make me stronger. I can't let them down.
It begins with a single strand of hair, sun-bleached, brittle, sealed in a plastic evidence bag that no one touched for more than 2 decades. A strand pulled from a crime scene so old the dust on the walls had already forgotten the sound of the sirens. A strand that would one day append everything investigators believed about a night carved into Texas history, a night of rain, headlights slicing through rural darkness, and a disappearance that detonated a shockwave through a peaceful town unprepared for a headline that would haunt it for years. Texas 1998 cold case unsolved, community stunned, police baffled, no suspects. But before anyone knew it as a cold case, before the years layered over it like sediment, it was simply fear in real time. Fear crawling across Calhoun County, sinking into kitchen tables, church pews, bar counters, and school hallways. Fear whispering that if she could vanish, anyone could. No one wanted to say her name at first, as if speaking it aloud might summon whatever force had taken her. But eventually, they had to say it. Mariah Kellum, 19 years old, last seen alive on a 2-lane road that cut between cotton fields and a dying tree line already leaning toward winter. The night she disappeared was supposed to be ordinary. A late shift at the diner, a drive home, a phone call she never made, and a silence that rang louder with each passing hour. Patrol cars cruised the fields before dawn, their beams sweeping through rows of cotton that looked disturbingly like shrouds in the dark. When they found her car, a faded red Honda, door ajar, key still in the ignition, the first headline formed itself without needing a single reporter: young woman vanishes without a trace. But the trace was there. They just didn't know where to look. Rain had washed away the tire tracks. Wind had carried off footprints. The land itself seemed to hide its secrets, swallowing any hint of what happened between 11:08 p.m., when Mariah clocked out, and the moment her car rolled to a stop on County Road 12. The only object out of place, a small silver pendant, dented, lying in the grass, was bagged and tagged, then shelved next to more than a dozen other items whose meaning investigators couldn't decipher. Not yet. Maybe not ever. In 1998, DNA testing was a promise more than a power. Labs were slow, samples degraded easily, and rural departments operated on budgets that felt like afterthoughts. The evidence sat because there was nothing else to do with it. Leads collapsed one by one. Witness statements contradicted each other. Rumors spread faster than facts, each twisting the town into knots. She ran away. She knew her attacker. It was cartel-related. It was cult-related. It was something darker, something older, something no one dared articulate. But the truth, floating somewhere in the gap between speculation and silence, drifted further out of reach with every passing season. For years, the file was opened only on anniversaries or whenever a desperate tip trickled through the department's voicemail. Detectives aged, retired, died. New officers joined the force and inherited the case like a curse embedded in their training manuals. Texer's 1998 cold case remains unsolved became a phrase repeated so often it sounded like a single word. Somewhere in the evidence room, the strand of hair waited. So quiet it almost wasn't real. So insignificant it almost didn't matter. Until one day, it did. But that moment was decades away. Back in the beginning, what mattered was the town's unraveling. Calhoun County transformed overnight. Porch lights that once glowed casually through warm evenings now burned like warning signals. Parents gripped their children's hands tighter. Women walked to their cars with keys threaded between their fingers. The sheriff's office answered more calls about suspicious shadows than actual crimes. No one trusted anyone. No one knew who to fear. The fields Mariah disappeared beside became a scar. Drivers avoided the road at night, swearing they felt watched by something they couldn't name. Every time headlights splashed across the empty ditch where her car was found, they revealed the same questions. Where did she go? Why did she stop? What happened in the seconds between breath and disappearance? The last person to see her alive, a co-worker named Jenner, told investigators that Mariah seemed normal, tired, ready to go home, frustrated about a loose shift schedule. Nothing dramatic. Nothing ominous. Nothing that hinted she was hours away from stepping into a mystery so dense it would smother the region's peace for years. Yet one thing always bothered Jenner. A detail she replayed over and over until it twisted into obsession. As Mariah walked to her car, she turned her head slightly, as if someone had called her name. But no one else was there. No customer lingering outside. No car idling in the lot. Just a cold breeze and a look, quick, sharp, uneasy. Police chalked it up to nerves, imagination, or the fog of hindsight. But for Jenner, that moment echoed like a warning she failed to understand. A thread she could never grasp tightly enough to unravel what lay behind it. Investigators combed through Mariah's life, her friends, her family, her job, her past, but nothing aligned with violence. No grudges. No stalkers. No threats. Just a 19-year-old girl balancing work and community college, trying to save enough to leave the town she loved but also felt trapped by. A girl whose dreams were bigger than the highway she vanished beside. Every theory, abduction, robbery, revenge, crime of opportunity, carried weight but lacked evidence. The case walked in circles, and the town walked with it, growing weary, suspicious, and haunted. Months blurred into years. Leads dried out like the Texas soil. Newspaper clippings yellowed. The sheriff who originally handled the case retired and left behind a single sentence etched into his final report. Something feels wrong here. Something we missed. He never identified what it was. By the time the file officially entered cold case status, Mariah's story had transitioned from tragedy to legend. Children in Calhoun County grew up hearing her name as a bedtime warning. Teenagers dared each other to park near the ditch where her car was found. Travelers passing through the region heard locals speak about the case in the same wary tone they used to discuss storms, inevitable, destructive, unforgettable. And still, the evidence waited. The pendant. The fiber on the car seat. The smudged fingerprint that yielded nothing in databases. The soil sample that revealed no footprints but an odd chemical trace no one understood at the time. The half-moon shapes on the driver's door, as though someone with trembling hands had tried, and failed, to pull it closed. And the strand of hair, trapped in plastic, nearly invisible. 20 years later, when the box was pulled from storage again, the first reaction from the newly formed cold case unit was disbelief. That so many items had remained untested. That so much potential had gone untouched. That the answers might have been whispering from the evidence room all along, just waiting for technology to evolve enough to hear them. But back in 1998, none of that was known. Back in 1998, all anyone had was fear, grief, and the hollow ring of unanswered questions. The search for Mariah expanded beyond Texas, into neighboring states, onto interstate bulletins, onto early internet message boards where strangers debated clues with the fervor of digital prophets. Some theories bordered on the bizarre, others were rooted in patterns of regional crime. But no matter how compelling, none led to her. Every discovery collapsed. Every tip dissolved. Every hope fractured. And through it all, the community carried the same headline in their minds: Texas 1998 cold case, mystery deepens. The phrase became a wound that refused to heal, festering under the surface of a town desperate to move on but forever caught in the gravitational pull of one unanswered night. Some believed Mariah was no longer in Texas. Some believed she never left the county. Some believed they knew the killer's identity, pointing fingers at ex-boyfriends, distant relatives, truckers who passed through town, recluse neighbors whose lawns grew too wild. But belief was cheap. Proof was priceless, and they had none. What the investigators did have, though they didn't know it at the time, was the beginning of a story that would eventually shatter itself open with a single, electrifying phrase: DNA twist stuns investigators. But that revelation would not arrive until decades later, when a new generation of detectives with new tools and new eyes returned to the evidence the world had forgotten. For now, the story remains rooted in the past. In the night the rain fell, the engine cooled, and a 19-year-old girl slipped silently from the world, leaving behind only a car, a pendant, a strand of hair, and a mystery that refused to die. A mystery that still breathes beneath the weight of unanswered years. A mystery waiting for the moment when truth finally claws its way to the surface and shakes Texas to its core. The year the case thawed began like any other. Humid mornings, slow sirens, the same rusted water tower casting its long, tired shadow across Calhoun County. No one expected the file labeled Kellum, Mariah, 1998 to land on a new desk, or for a young detective named Rowan Price to pause longer than a second before flipping the cover open. Most officers considered the box cursed, a black hole capable of swallowing time, morale, and sanity. But Rowan wasn't from Calhoun. He didn't grow up hearing the warnings. He didn't inherit the fear. He saw only a puzzle left unsolved for far too long, a silence begging to be broken. He didn't know that across the county, in a quiet house with cracked shutters, a man who'd long avoided the town centre jolted every time he heard Mariah's name on television reruns of old missing person specials. He didn't know a truth lived there, fragile, festering, waiting for the world to forget. But secrets don't sleep forever. And this one stirred the moment Rowan unlatched the evidence box. Under the thin fluorescent lights of the cold case room, he laid everything out: the pendant, the soil, the fingerprint card, the sealed hair sample that hadn't been touched since the late 90s. His partner, Detective Maggie Cole, watched with the wary skepticism of someone who'd seen too many promising starts die without ceremony. She leaned against the metal cabinet, arms crossed, voice heavy with experience as she warned him, "This case eats people." Rowan barely looked up. "Then we starve it." He didn't know yet how prophetic those words were. Rowan began where others had abandoned hope, by mapping the original crime scene with new technology. Drones traced the ditch. A reconstruction model simulated the position of Mariah's car, the angle of the door, the distance of the pendant from the driver's seat. Slowly, a picture formed that contradicted the assumptions investigators made in 1998. The car hadn't simply rolled to a stop. It was braked, hard. The position of gravel beneath the front tires suggested a sudden, panicked maneuver, as though Mariah swerved to avoid something. Or someone. This wasn't a quiet disappearance. It was an eruption. But eruptions leave debris. Somewhere among the items overlooked for decades, Rowan believed a clue lay dormant, one that modern tools could finally revive. His eyes kept returning to the sealed plastic containing the strand of hair, the one dismissed as contamination back when DNA tech struggled with even clean samples. Now, the labs could build profiles from fragments, from shadows of genetic material, from whispers. When Rowan submitted the hair for modern DNA sequencing, he felt something shift, like gears grinding after years of rust, like a machine awakening. He didn't tell the department. Not yet. He didn't want hope contaminating the air before results arrived. He spent the waiting days deep in Mariah's world, retracing footsteps from her diner shift routes, reopening interviews with people who hadn't heard her name spoken officially in years. Most were cooperative. Some were startled. A few reacted with discomfort that bordered on fear. He visited the diner first. The building was still standing, though renovated, the pink neon replaced by sterile blue lettering. The booth where Mariah once served regulars now held a family of 5, unaware their table was once a landmark in a haunted timeline. The new manager didn't know the case well, but several older servers did, women who'd worked alongside Mariah when she was a soft-spoken teen with chipped nail polish and a habit of humming old country songs under her breath. One of them, a woman named Eliza Heron, reluctantly recalled a detail buried under years of dust. There was a man, as she murmured, eyes narrowing as if squinting into memory's glare. Came in twice that week. Sat at the counter. Didn't order anything but coffee. And he never looked at the cup, just at her. The original investigators had never documented this man. No sketch. No name. No follow-up. Rowan wrote it down, though he knew vague sightings of mysterious men were woven into nearly every missing person story. Still, something about Eliza's tone lingered. Fear. Recognition. Regret. Far across the county, the man who once haunted the diner's counter, now older, heavier, his face collapsed into itself from years of hiding, watched local news anxiously every night. When the anchor mentioned renewed interest in historical missing person cases, he gripped his armrests so tightly the vinyl tore under his fingers. His breathing hitched. His eyes clouded. Memories he buried so deeply they almost fossilized stirred again. But Rowan didn't know his face yet. Didn't know his name. Didn't know that a shadow from the diner had grown into a ghost still walking among the living. Instead, Rowan focused on the evidence. Maggie called him reckless for pouring so much energy into a case with a history of devouring detectives. Cold cases don't resurrect themselves, as she muttered. Rowan replied without looking up, and maybe not. But victims can. He believed that. He believed Mariah still had a voice, muted by time but not extinguished. He believed every cold case carried a pulse, faint but persistent, waiting for the right hands to restart its heartbeat. Late one evening, while Rowan cross-referenced old tips with newly digitized records, a notification blinked across his screen, a message from the DNA lab. Test complete. Results uploaded. Further review recommended. His pulse spiked. Maggie rushed in when she heard his chair scrape back across the floor. The screen loaded slowly, painfully, the cursor spinning like a countdown to revelation. When the result appeared, the room fell silent. The hair did not belong to Mariah. It did not belong to any investigator. It did not match any catalogued DNA in official databases. But it matched something else, something investigators in 1998 never could have anticipated. The hair belonged to an unidentified male whose partial DNA signature had been flagged during a recent nationwide genealogical comparison. Not a criminal. Not a suspect in any system. But a ghost connected to a cluster of relatives in central Texas. A family. A lineage. A bloodline. The system highlighted a match with a 42% probability, just enough to suggest a distant relative. A cousin, perhaps. A second cousin. The name attached to the relative, Henry Kellum. Mariah's uncle. But Henry had an alibi in 1998, an alibi investigators accepted without question. A heart attack had landed him in the hospital 3 days before her disappearance. Records confirmed that. Nurses confirmed that. His attending physician confirmed that. Yet the DNA didn't lie. Rowan felt the room tilt slightly, like he was standing on uneven ground for the first time since reopening the case. Maggie leaned closer to the screen, whispering, "And no way. No way that's correct." But the data was clear. Someone biologically related to the Kellum family had been in Mariah's car. Or had been close enough to leave DNA behind. A twist no one expected. A twist that rattled the case loose from its foundations. A twist that would soon earn the headline, DNA stuns investigators. But Rowan wasn't stunned. He was electrified. Still, he needed to proceed carefully. Families fracture under suspicion. And the Kellum family had already been crushed once by tragedy. Approaching them would mean reopening wounds that never healed. He visited Mariah's mother first. The woman, now older, frailer, but still sharp, opened the door before he could knock a second time. Her eyes scanned his face, instantly recognizing the look cold case detectives always carried, a mixture of hope, hesitation, and quiet dread. Found something, as she whispered. Not a question. A statement. Rowan nodded. Inside, the house was exactly what he expected. Walls lined with photographs, a room preserved with belongings untouched since 1998, a silence that felt rehearsed, practiced, perfected over 20 years. Mariah's mother listened expressionlessly as Rowan explained the genealogical match. The mention of Henry's name made her flinch, so subtly Rowan barely caught it. Henry loved her, she insisted, though her voice trembled at the edges. He was in the hospital. He couldn't have been anywhere near that road. Rowan asked gently, did he ever leave the hospital? Even for an hour? Even unnoticed? The distress on her face deepened. He wouldn't. He couldn't. But she didn't say he didn't. Across the county, in that dark house with shuttered windows, Henry Kellum sat staring at the glow of his television, the static sound blending with the hum of memories he fought every day. He didn't know his DNA, or someone connected to him, had just resurfaced after 20 years. He didn't know the past had begun its slow, methodical march back toward his doorstep. Yet something in his body sensed danger. His chest tightened. His breath shortened. Memories flickered like broken film reels, Mariah's smile, the diner, the road, the overwhelming urge to keep her safe, the moment everything spiraled out of control. Rowan spent the night poring over Henry's hospital files. A detail emerged, one so small it was nearly invisible. A 2-hour window unaccounted for on the night Mariah disappeared. No written nurse check-ins. No chart entries. A shift change gap. 2 hours. Enough to leave a hospital. Enough to reach County Road 12. Enough to return before anyone noticed. But Rowan also knew something else. DNA from a relative didn't guarantee Henry was the source. It could be a brother, a cousin, a nephew, a child the family didn't talk about. Someone carrying the Kellum bloodline, but not the Kellum name. Someone hiding beneath the surface of a family tree. The cold case didn't just reopen. It detonated. Rowan and Maggie debated their next move, voices hushed over the glow of the evidence table. Every step now carried risk. Every conclusion could rupture lives. But they couldn't ignore the DNA. Not when it was the first concrete lead in decades. As dawn inched through the blinds, Rowan whispered the words that would shift the investigation into its next, more dangerous phase. Someone in the Kellum family knows the truth. And somewhere, that someone felt the world beginning to close in. The morning after Rowan whispered the suspicion that would fracture everything, the sky over Calhoun County felt unnervingly still, as if the air itself were holding its breath. Clouds sat motionless, sun trapped behind them like a light bulb flickering in a dying socket. Nothing looked different, yet something had shifted, subtle, invisible, inevitable. The kind of shift that happens right before a quiet place learns it's been living beside a storm. Rowan didn't wait for the department's approval. He never did. While paperwork crawled through official channels, he moved on instinct sharpened by the sense that someone, somewhere, felt truth tightening around them like a noose. He returned to the evidence table before dawn, reviewing the genealogical match again and again, trying to see what everyone else had missed for 20 years. The Kellum family tree wasn't small. It sprawled like a knot of vines, cousins, half-uncles, estranged relatives living within a 50-mile radius. Most were ordinary people with ordinary lives, but in cold cases, ordinary isn't a shield. Ordinary people carry secrets too. Maggie arrived with 2 coffees and the look of someone bracing herself for impact. "So," she muttered, "we're walking straight into a family minefield." Rowan didn't argue. The Kellums were respected, long-standing members of the county. Digging into their history meant shaking the bones of people who'd never imagined scrutiny turning in their direction. But DNA didn't lie. Somewhere in the branches of that tree was a leaf no one knew existed, or pretended not to. "We start with births, deaths, and disappearances," Rowan said, spreading documents across the table. "Anyone who vanished from records. Anyone who doesn't quite fit." Hours later, a pattern emerged. Not a clean line, more like a flutter in the data, a shadow cast by a name that didn't belong where it appeared. A boy born in 1977, listed on county tax forms for exactly 3 years, then nowhere else. No school records. No employment history. No medical files. Just a name, Elias Hart. Not a Kellum on paper. But genetically? Close. Very close. A child on the fringes of the family. A child erased. "Who is he?" Maggie asked. "Someone who shouldn't exist," Rowan replied. The trail was thin, brittle, but it was more than the case had in decades. Elias Hart became priority 1. Across town, at the edge of a subdivision draped in silence, a man stirred awake before the sun rose. Not Henry Kellum, though Henry, too, felt his pulse throb like a warning drum. This man lived even further from sight, tucked in a trailer behind an abandoned feed store, surrounded by overgrown brush that concealed everything except the metallic glint of a truck parked too neatly beside the door. He woke gasping, heart hammering against his ribs. Dreams of headlights, rain, and a girl with frightened eyes clawed at the back of his skull. He never spoke her name, not even in dreams, but the memory of her face flickered in him like a flare buried under ash. He didn't know Rowan had found the name Elias Hart in a forgotten ledger. He didn't know the search had begun closing in around him. But instinct whispered danger, an instinct sharpened by decades of running from a truth he could neither outrun nor confess. Back at the station, Rowan and Maggie traced the paperwork surrounding Elias. His mother, a woman named Judith Hart, had died from a reported overdose in 1981. Her death certificate listed no relatives. But Rowan found a handwritten note at the bottom of an old welfare document, a child reportedly staying with extended family. No details provided. The handwriting was almost illegible, but the implication was clear. Someone took the boy in. Someone kept him off the radar. Someone tied to the Kellums. A secret child. A hidden branch. Rowan didn't say the words aloud, but the look he exchanged with Maggie confirmed they were both thinking the same thing. If Elias grew up unseen, untracked, and unaccounted for, then he was exactly the kind of person capable of slipping through the cracks of a 1998 investigation. The kind of person who could walk through a crime scene like a ghost. They began interviewing the Kellum relatives, carefully, cautiously, disguising their intentions behind routine cold case inquiries. The family welcomed them politely, though unease rippled beneath the surface of their smiles. When Rowan asked about Judith Hart, most shrugged or claimed not to remember. When he asked about a boy named Elias, a subtle tension flickered across faces, eyelids tightening, lips pressing together, hands shifting on knees. Almost everyone claimed ignorance. Almost. One relative, a reclusive aunt named Malene, hesitated. Not long, not overtly, but enough for Rowan to see the fracture in her resolve. Her voice trembled when she finally answered. Judith had a hard life. Trouble followed her. People tried to help. Didn't always work. Did she have a child? Rowan pressed. A pores stretched thin as wire. I don't know what happened to him, as she whispered. But someone took him. Someone who shouldn't have. Before Rowan could push further, she stood abruptly and ended the conversation. Outside, Maggie exhaled sharply. She knows something. No, Rowan corrected, staring at the closed door. She knows someone. Later that evening, Rowan sat alone in the evidence room, staring at the pendant found near Mariah's abandoned car. He'd looked at it dozens of times, convinced it was nothing more than a relic of her belongings. But tonight, under the dim hum of the flickering fluorescent light, he noticed something, an indentation on the back, almost invisible unless tilted at the right angle. Letters. Faint. Scratched. Desperate. He angled the light. E.H. Not Mariah's initials. Not any known friend, relative, or acquaintance in her life. But they matched one name. Elias. Hart. The air left Rowan's lungs in a rush. The pendant wasn't lost. It was dropped during a struggle. Maybe pulled. Maybe torn. A message written in miniature, preserved by accident. Somewhere in Calhoun County, Elias Hart was alive. And he had been inches from Mariah the night she vanished. Rowan didn't sleep. Couldn't. He drove the old county roads, headlights cutting through the dark in long, pale arcs, searching for any landmark that aligned with new patterns emerging in the case. Hours later, his car rolled to a stop at a dirt turnoff he'd passed countless times but never noticed. Overgrown mesquite branches arched over the entry like a warning gate. He got out, boots sinking into soft earth. The air smelled of cedar and damp soil. This land had been abandoned for years, yet it bore the faint outline of tire tracks, not fresh, not recent, but not decades old either. Tracks belonging to a vehicle that visited occasionally. Rowan followed them to a clearing where an old shed leaned sideways, collapsing into its own rot. On the door, beneath layers of peeling red paint, he saw a shape burned by sun and time. The outline of a pendant. A perfect match to Mariah's. Before he could take another step, Maggie called. Her voice trembled, something he'd never heard before. We got something from the Kellum property records. An unlisted deed. A small piece of land transferred under a proxy name in 1995. Whose land? Rowan asked, though he already knew. Our breath. Shallow. Judith Hart. And beneath the transfer line? A signature. A name Rowan had seen only once, buried in records like a dying ember. Elias. The pieces aligned with terrifying precision. Elias Hart existed. He was tied to the Kellums. He moved unseen. And he had access to isolated land perfect for hiding anything, or anyone. Across the county, in the dim glow of a flickering bulb inside the trailer behind the feed store, Elias sat hunched at a small table, hands trembling over an object he kept wrapped in cloth. Something metallic. Something etched. Something he couldn't bear to throw away even after all these years. Outside, a dog barked at nothing. Inside, Elias whispered a name he hadn't dared speak aloud since 1998. Mariah. A name that tasted like guilt, longing, fear, and something else, something darker. For 20 years, he'd lived in the shadow of that night, convincing himself he hadn't meant to hurt her. That everything went wrong too fast. That the world never gave him a chance to explain. But explanations don't erase truth. They don't silence evidence. And they don't stop detectives. Rowan stood in the clearing outside the abandoned shed, heart pounding as he traced the carved symbol on the door. The symbol Mariah carried around her neck. The one she dropped the moment her fate changed. The case wasn't cold anymore. It was burning. And somewhere out in the quiet sprawl of Texas, the man who held the real truth was beginning to realize his hiding place had finally been exposed. The wind shifted the moment Rowan stepped back from the shed door, sweeping through the clearing in a low, trembling gust that carried dust across the brittle grass. It felt like the land itself exhaled, slow, uneasy, as though something buried beneath the surface stirred at the sound of his footsteps. He didn't move for several seconds, eyes fixed on the faint pendant symbol carved into the wood, a symbol that connected 20 years of silence to a single name, Elias Hart. He didn't know whether Mariah had carved it in panic or whether Elias had left it like a signature, a mark claiming something he never should have touched. What he did know was that the ground around him suddenly felt heavier, as if it carried memories thick enough to choke on. The shed was a skeletal thing, rotted boards, rusted hinges, a collapsed roof beam leaning like a snapped spine. Yet standing before it, Rowan felt the unmistakable weight of presence. Something had happened here. Something the years tried but failed to erase. Footsteps approached behind him, Maggie's, quick and uneven across the hard-packed earth. She skidded to a stop at his side, eyes widening as she followed his line of sight to the carved symbol. "Oh Gardy," she breathed. "It's hers." Rowan didn't respond. He pushed the shed door with his sleeve-covered hand. It groaned open, the rusty hinge screaming a sound so sharp the clearing seemed to recoil from it. Dust exploded into the air like ash. The interior smelled of rot, old mold, and faint traces of something metallic, maybe long dried into the boards. They stepped inside, flashlights cutting thin white beams through the darkness. What looked like a pile of debris at first broke into clearer shapes, scraps of fabric, an overturned metal basin, a rope coil brittle with age. Rowan crouched, lifting a faded cloth strip between gloved fingers. Pink. Patterned. Floral. Something a teenage girl would own. Maggie murmured behind him, "This place was used. Someone lived here. Or hid here. Or held someone here." The thought burned through Rowan's mind like a fuse. He rose slowly, light drifting across the warped floorboards. Something had scratched up the wood, deep gouges that cut in erratic lines, like someone pushing back, clawing, trying to resist something stronger. A chill rippled up his spine. "Get this place sealed," he said tightly. "We process everything." But before Maggie could answer, his phone vibrated. An unknown number. A local exchange. He answered, voice taut. "Detective Price." Static filled the line for a moment, then a voice, low, gravel-edged, barely more than a breath. "You need to stop." Rowan stiffened. "Who is this?" Another breath. "Walk away. Leave the girl alone." "Mariah." It had to be. "Who are you?" he repeated, sharper now. Silence. Then the line clicked dead. Maggie stared at him, shock splintering across her face. "You think that was?" "I think someone's watching us," Rowan said quietly. "And I think they don't like what we're finding." They left the shed to secure the perimeter, but as Rowan stepped back into the clearing, something glinted in the dirt. A thin object half buried beneath dust. He knelt and brushed it free. A metal button. Old. Weathered. The kind used on utility jackets from the late 90s. Mariah wore a denim jacket the night she disappeared. Before Maggie could speak, a second call came, not from the unknown number, but from the department. Forensic lab. Rowan answered in one breath. We processed the secondary DNA pattern, the tech said, voice taut with excitement. It's stronger than the first. We found partial fingerprints in the shed. Not enough for a full ID, but enough for a possible relation to the Kellam genealogical cluster. Rowan's heart kicked hard. Who? He demanded. We can't say yet. But detective, whatever happened in that shed? Someone in the Kellam bloodline was there. The line disconnected. The cold case wasn't just warming, it was cracking open. Rowan ordered patrol units to sweep the surrounding woods, but he already sensed Elias wasn't anywhere near the shed anymore. Someone with his history would know every inch of backroads, every abandoned property, every hiding place carved into the county's neglected corners. But Rowan was closing in. And Elias could feel it. 50 minutes away, the lights in Elias's trailer flickered, casting his shadow across peeling wallpaper. He paced the narrow room, palms sweating, breath sharp and shallow. He knew the detectives had found the shed. He felt it like a knife pressed against the back of his skull. For years he'd managed to stay invisible, blending into the county's forgotten outskirts. But the moment they found the pendant, everything changed. He lifted the cloth-wrapped object from the table, the one he had clutched since Rowan first touched the hair sample. Slowly, he unwrapped it. A small silver chain. Broken. Bent. Stained. Mariah's. He held it between his shaking fingers, guilt tightening around him like barbed wire. He whispered, I didn't mean it, but the words collapsed in his throat. Intent didn't matter. Consequence did. And consequences were pounding on his door. He shoved the pendant into his pocket, grabbed a jacket, and bolted through the trailer's back exit into the brush. He moved like a man guided by instinct rather than direction, toward the woods, toward shadows, toward the last places on earth someone might think to search. Back at the station, Rowan and Maggie gathered the Kellam relatives for formal, legally binding interviews. The family's reactions shifted from polite discomfort to outright panic. Eyes darted. Voices tightened. A cousin stormed out. An uncle denied knowing anything but couldn't hide the tremble in his hands. Fear thickened the air, for not just of the truth, but of what that truth might reveal about their own history. Rowan watched each expression closely, searching for micro-reactions, hesitations, fractures in their lies. Then Henry Kellam entered the room. His once strong frame had wilted, but his eyes were sharp, too sharp. The kind of sharpness honed by years of guarding something heavy. Rowan motioned him to sit. We're reopening the investigation into your niece's disappearance, Rowan said, voice neutral. We found new evidence. Henry's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. We're tracing individuals connected to your family, Rowan continued, including those not publicly documented. Silence stretched thin. Then Henry swallowed, hard. His voice, when it emerged, was fragile. I knew this day would come. Rowan's pulse kicked. Maggie leaned forward. Henry stared at the table. Judith, she had problems. Everyone knows that. But no one knew she had a child. Not until it was too late. His voice cracked. He wasn't right. even as a boy. Something in him was missing. A chill slid down Rowan's spine. What was his name? Rowan asked softly. Henry hesitated, eyes glistening. Elias, he whispered. The room felt suddenly smaller. Where is he now? Maggie pressed. Henry looked up, and for the first time, true fear burned in his eyes. I don't know, he said. But if you found the shed, he knows you looking. A tremor rippled through him. And when Elias feels cornered, he doesn't run. Rowan frowned. Then what does he do? Henry's voice dropped to a tremor. He takes. Before Rowan could ask more, a deputy rushed into the room, breathless, pale. Detective Price, 911 call from Old Mill Road. Someone reported a man matching the Kellum genealogical sketch wandering near the property line. They said he looked unstable. Rowan stood so quickly his chair skidded back. Elias, Maggie said, already grabbing her jacket. Henry's voice followed them out, soft and terrified. Be careful. You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of when he thinks the past is coming for him. But Rowan did know. He'd seen the scratches in the shed. The pendant. The DNA. The carved symbol. He knew this wasn't just a man avoiding capture. It was a man trying to bury a moment that refused to stay dead. Rows of patrol cars streaked down Old Mill Road, red and blue lights cutting through dusk. Rowan felt the tension coil inside him like a tightening spring. If Elias was near that property, if he was truly unraveling, then the confrontation waiting ahead would not be a quiet one. Somewhere in the darkening woods, Elias moved between trees with the urgency of a hunted animal. His breathing ragged. His mind spiraling. His memories crashing against each other like broken glass. He whispered her name again. Mariah. As if speaking it could rewrite the past. As if speaking it might silence the storm chasing him. But the storm had already arrived. And Rowan Price was at its center. Old Mill Road unfolded ahead of the patrol convoy like a strip of asphalt carved through wilderness, each curve swallowed by thick clusters of oak and mesquite. The last light drained from the sky, leaving behind a dim red smear on the horizon that felt less like sunset and more like a warning. Rowan lowered his window as he drove, letting in the cool bite of evening air. It carried the smell of dust and pine, ordinary scents, somehow sharpened by the tension coiling through the convoy. Elias was close. Rowan could feel it. Dispatch updated them through bursts of static. A property owner had spotted a man wandering near the tree line, muttering, stumbling, pausing at intervals as if listening for something only he could hear. The caller described him as a wild-eyed, dirty, ear and a talking to ghosts. Maggie muttered beside him, his unraveling faster than we thought. Rowan didn't answer. His jaw stayed set, his grip on the wheel tight. Everything in him pulsed with the sense that this night was the pivot, the moment the cold case stopped being a puzzle and became something else, something alive, something dangerous. A deputy flagged them down at the intersection where pavement gave way to dirt. Footprints heading north, he reported, breath fogging in the cold. Light, uneven. Probably injured or exhausted. Dogs a-tracking. Rowan didn't wait for more. He grabbed a flashlight and pushed into the woods. Maggie followed close behind, her radio crackling with scattered updates from the perimeter teams. The forest closed in quickly, branches clawing at their sleeves. Leaves crunched under their boots, each step echoing with a strange, oppressive heaviness. The deeper they moved, the more Rowan felt the shift, the temperature dropping, the air thickening, a faint hum vibrating through the ground. Fear leaves signatures. So does guilt. Rowan felt both swirling in the darkness ahead. They followed the footprints until the dog's barking cut through the stillness. Deputies converged on the sound. Rowan sprinted the last stretch, flashlight slicing through shadows. A jacket lay crumpled at the base of a tree. Worn, dirty, torn. Inside the pocket, Rowan's stomach clenched at the sight, a small scrap of cloth. Pink. Floral. Faded. Mariah's. Maggie whispered, he kept it. All these years. Rowan swallowed hard. He felt Maggie's eyes on him, searching for direction, but he couldn't look away from the cloth. The memory of the shed, the scratches on the floorboards, the pendant etched into the door, everything collapsed into one truth. Elias never left the past. And the past never left him. The dogs barked again, further north this time. Deputies shouted. Something snapped in the woods, a branch, or Elias himself breaking into a run. Rowan sprinted toward the sound, weaving between trees, breath sharp in his chest. Stop, he yelled, his voice cutting through the cold. Elias! Stop right there. A shadow darted ahead, thin, ragged, stumbling. Not fast. Not strong. But desperate. Rowan pushed harder. For a moment, the world slowed, the shadow slipping between trees, his flashlight catching the edge of a pale face, the wild gleam of eyes that had seen too much and understood too little. Then Elias tripped over a root and crashed hard onto his side. Deputies surrounded him, weapons drawn, commands firing into the darkness. Elias froze, hands trembling in the air, not out of compliance, but out of shock, confusion, a childlike fear that twisted Rowan's chest unexpectedly. Rowan stepped forward, lowering his weapon. Elias' heart, he said, voice steady. You're not hurt. No one's here to harm you. But you need to talk to us. Elias didn't blink. Didn't breathe. His gaze flicked between Rowan and the deputies, as if trying to understand which one represented the greater threat. Then, in a voice that broke like fragile glass, she wasn't supposed to scream. A silence fell over the woods, heavy, suffocating, absolute. Deputies shifted uneasily. Maggie stiffened. Rowan felt something inside him go cold. What happened, Elias? Rowan asked quietly. Elias's lips quivered. I just wanted to talk to her. Just talk. She always smiled at me. No one ever smiled at me. His hands trembled harder. Dirt smudged his face, streaked like war paint. She got scared, he whispered. She said my name. Over and over. Like she wanted someone to hear. Rowan took a step closer. Where is she, Elias? Elias recoiled as if struck. I tried to make her stop screaming. I tried. I didn't mean to. Where is she? Rowan repeated, sharper now. Elias squeezed his eyes shut. Tears slipped down cheeks already lined by years of hiding. I don't know anymore. A deputy muttered a curse under his breath. Rowan knelt so he was level with Elias, flashlight angled toward the ground to soften the intensity. Elias, listen to me. That night, you were at the shed. You struggled with her. You left marks on the floor. You dropped the pendant. But what happened after? Did she run? Did you chase her? Did she fall? Tell me. Elias opened his eyes, and for a split second, Rowan saw a child, lost, frightened, overwhelmed by a world that never taught him to navigate it. Then the expression soured into something darker. "I buried her," he whispered. Maggie inhaled sharply. Rowan felt his pulse spike. "Where?" Elias looked past him, toward the deeper woods where darkness hung like a curtain. "There." By the old creek bed. It was raining. The ground was soft. I thought she'd sleep." Deputies exchanged horrified glances. Rowan stood, heartbeat pounding like a fist inside his chest. "Take him into custody. Secure this entire area. I want ground-penetrating radar, K-9 units, forensic teams, everything." As they escorted Elias away, he began murmuring softly, rocking slightly in the deputy's grip. "She shouldn't have screamed, she shouldn't have screamed, she shouldn't have screamed." The phrase followed them like a ghost. Maggie stepped beside Rowan. "You think he's telling the truth?" Rowan exhaled slowly. "He believes it." "But belief isn't proof," she said. Rowan nodded, staring into the darkness where Elias had pointed. "No. But the truth is buried out there somewhere. And we're about to find it." They pushed deeper into the forest with search teams, guided by Elias's broken directions. The old creek bed wasn't far, but decades of storms had reshaped the land. Ditch lines eroded, mud hardened into uneven ridges, roots twisted through layers of sediment. If a grave existed here, it had been swallowed by 20 years of weather and silence. Drones flew overhead, thermal cameras scanning the ground in long, slow passes. K-9 units weaved through brush, noses low, tails stiff with focus. Deputies marked the earth with orange flags, forming a grid. Rowan walked every inch himself. Hours passed. The forest grew colder, darker. Then a dog barked twice, a specific signal. A deputy shouted, "Over here." "Something's under the soil." Rowan sprinted toward the sound, heart hammering. The dog poured at a patch of sunken earth near the creek, whining, circling, whining again. Deputies knelt, gloved hands brushing away leaves and debris. Beneath the top layer of dirt, something pale emerged, fibers. Fabric. Maybe clothing. Maybe more. Maggie whispered, "Oh God." A forensic tech lifted a fragment free, a torn piece of denim. Darkened by age. Distorted by soil. Mariah's jacket. The air thickened, pressing against Rowan's lungs. He swallowed hard, forcing his voice not to shake as he ordered lights, tarps, excavation tools. The ground was soft enough to dig but firm enough that something might still be preserved. As technicians worked, Rowan stepped back, looking at the forest stretching endlessly around them. This place had held its secret for 2 decades. Quietly. Patiently. Without conscience. Then another sound split the night, muffled, urgent. "Detective Price," Ear Deputy shouted. "You need to see this. Now." Rowan rushed over. 2 technicians knelt at the excavation site, faces pale, eyes wide. One pointed to the edge of the pit, voice trembling. "There's more than one set of remains." Maggie's breath hitched. What does that mean?" The tech swallowed, voice breaking. "It means Mariah wasn't the only one." Rowan stared into the earth, into the dark, into the past, into the truth finally clawing its way into daylight, and for the first time since reopening the case, he felt something worse than horror. The cold case hadn't begun with Mariah. And it hadn't ended with her either. The moment the words left the technician's mouth, the forest seemed to tilt. Even the wind paused, suspended in a shocked silence, as though the trees themselves understood that the ground they'd been rooted in was no longer innocent. Rowan felt his heart beat hammer against his ribs, sharp and relentless, as he stared into the pit slowly widening under the forensic lamps. The first fragment of denim already looked tragic enough, but the presence of more than one set of remains shifted the case into something far darker, something the county had never imagined lurking beneath its soil. For 20 years, the story was about one missing girl. One cold case. One night of terror. But now, as gloved hands brushed away soil to reveal the outline of bones arranged in a disordered, unnatural tangle, it was clear Mariah had not suffered alone. A forest floor had held secrets stacked in layers, years of them, compressed under silence and rain. Maggie stepped backward, breath shaking. "How many?" she whispered. The lead forensic tech swallowed hard. "We don't know yet. But at least 2. Possibly 3. Rowan felt his blood run cold. "We're dealing with a serial offender." It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. Deputies exchanged glances filled with a mix of dread and disbelief. Calhoun County had always prided itself on being safe, dusty, quiet, predictable. Not the kind of place where serial predators buried victims like seeds in the woods. Yet the evidence was right there, in the shallow cradle of earth, bones positioned in the unmistakable ache of violence. A shovel struck a stone with a dull clang, breaking the brittle quiet. Rowan stepped closer, his flashlight beam trembling slightly as it passed over the remains. A skull emerged, cracked, moss-stained, jaw askew. The age of the soil around it suggested it had been here longer than Mariah. Years longer. Maggie whispered, he didn't just lose control once. Rowan's voice was barely audible. "No. Elias has been hiding bodies." Someone radioed for backup. Someone else vomited quietly behind a tree. But Rowan didn't move. He stayed at the edge of the pit, staring into the grave as though it were trying to speak. And in a way, it was. Soil remembers. Bones remember. The earth remembers. But Elias' heart had forgotten, or forced himself to forget, and in doing so buried not only victims but pieces of himself. Rowan thought back to the moment Elias whispered that he had buried her. The trembling voice. The confusion. The distortions in his memories. He wasn't describing a single act. He was describing a pattern. Maggie touched Rowan's arm. He didn't know how many. Or he lied, Rowan muttered. "No," Maggie said quietly. "Lie requires clarity. He doesn't have clarity. He's broken." Rowan didn't argue. Elias's fractured psyche was obvious. But brokenness didn't absolve guilt. It made it unpredictable, and far more dangerous than they initially believed. A deputy approached, face pale. "Detective Price, Elias is asking for you. He's in the cruiser. Keep saying your name." Rowan exchanged a glance with Maggie before heading back through the trees, the forest closing behind him like a curtain sealing off the horrors beneath it. As they reached the dirt road, the flashing lights cast eerie red pulsations across Elias's face through the cruiser's rear window. His eyes darted in frantic patterns, sweat beading on his brow. The moment Rowan opened the door, Elias leaned forward, cuffed hands twitching violently. "I didn't do all of it," he blurted. "Not all. Not all of them." Rowan froze. Maggie stepped closer, listening intently. Elias shook his head rapidly, like an animal trying to shake off a snare. "The woods, they weren't always quiet. Sometimes I heard things. Screams. Not mine. Not hers. Before Mariah. Rowan's pulse spiked. Before. Elias nodded, tears streaking down grime-covered cheeks. Someone else was there. Someone who watched me. Someone who... He paused, swallowing hard, as though choking on the memory. Someone who taught me. The world stopped. Maggie whispered, "It taught him?" Rowan stepped closer. "Who taught you, Elias?" Elias looked directly at him for the first time, a raw, terrified gaze, like a child confessing the darkest thing in his life. "My uncle." Rowan felt the ground tilt under him. "Henry?" "No," Elias gasped. "Not Henry. The other one." "There is no other one," Maggie said, shaking her head. But Elias laughed then, a hollow, broken laugh, the kind that scraped the nerves like rusted metal. "You don't know the Kellums," he whispered. "You don't know what they hide." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Give me a name." Elias pressed his forehead to the metal barrier between them. His voice splintered into a trembling whisper. "Caleb." Rowan exchanged a stunned look with Maggie. "There is no Caleb Kellum on record," as she murmured. Elias laughed again, shoulders shaking. "Of course not. He doesn't want you to find him." A deputy signaled frantically from across the road. "Detective, you need to see this, now." Rowan turned to run, but Elias shouted behind him, voice rising to a high, panicked pitch. "He never left. You think you're chasing me, but you're chasing him. He's here. He's here." The words clawed at Rowan's mind as he sprinted toward the excavation site. Maggie was right beside him, boots pounding the dirt. They reached the forensic tent, where a technician held a small, mud-encrusted object wrapped in plastic. His hands shook as he passed it to Rowan. "We found this in the grave," he said quietly. "Buried beside the older set of remains." Rowan angled his flashlight. It was a badge. Old. Rust-eaten. But still legible. Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. Rowan's breath caught. A deputy's badge? Maggie whispered, and no, not just any deputy. Below the badge number, scraped but decipherable, was a name stamped into the metal. Caleb Kellum. Rowan stared at it, numb. A loreman. Maggie's voice trembled. This was one of their own. Before Rowan could respond, the radio exploded with frantic chatter. Unit 7 to command. Possible movement detected near the far ridge. Repeat. We have movement. Unknown subject. Tall. Male. Heading toward. Static swallowed the rest. Rowan raised his head. The forest beyond the tents loomed like a black ocean, every tree a possible hiding place. "We need air support," Maggie said, reaching for her radio. "No," Rowan replied, stepping forward. "We need to move now." He grabbed a flashlight, an extra magazine, and started toward the ridge. Deputies followed, forming a tight formation behind him. Maggie was at his side, jaw set, eyes sharp. The forest grew darker with every step, light swallowed by branches so dense they knit together like twisted ribs. A faint crunch echoed from somewhere ahead. Another. Then another. Slow. Deliberate. Not the stumbling of Elias. Not the pacing of search teams. Something else. Rowan signaled the deputies to fan out. Flashlights swept across bark and shadow. Leaves shivered overhead. Then, suddenly, silence. Complete. Crushing. Eerie. Rowan whispered, "Caleb, are you here?" Maggie shot him a warning glare. A branch snapped behind them. They spun. Flashlights flared. Nothing. Then a voice drifted through the trees, low, controlled, almost gentle. "You should have left the past buried." Rowan's breath hitched. Maggie's finger hovered over her trigger. Another voice, not Elias's. Older. Calm. Almost patient. "You've been digging in the wrong places," the voice said. "Looking at the wrong man." Elias was never the danger. He was the lesson. Rowan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Caleb." Leaves rustled. A shadow shifted between trunks. Mariah wasn't the first, Caleb said. But she was supposed to be the last. A faint metallic click echoed through the dark. A trigger, a safety, a weapon being raised. Rowan inhaled sharply. The cold case wasn't cold at all. It was alive. It was armed. And it was standing somewhere in the darkness, watching them. Caleb spoke again, soft, almost tender. "Stop looking for the dead, detective." A pause. "Start worrying about the living." Then, a gunshot cracked through the forest, exploding the night into chaos. The gunshot tore through the forest like a lightning strike. Birds erupted from the treetops in a violent burst, leaves spiraling under the shockwave. Rowan dropped instantly, instincts firing before thought could catch up. Deputies around him dove behind trees, flashlights jerking wildly as beams fractured across the dark. "Position. Now!" Maggie shouted, pressing into a fallen log as another sharp crack sliced through the air. But the second shot wasn't aimed at them. It hit something metal deeper in the woods, ricochet ringing like a warning, not a kill attempt. Caleb wasn't trying to end them. He was hurting them. Rowan crawled behind a thick trunk, heart pounding, breath sharp in his throat. He scanned through the shadows, searching for movement, anything shaping itself against the black. But Caleb Kellum was a ghost mold by the forest. A man who'd lived beneath its canopy long enough to become part of it. A deputy whispered harshly through the radio, "East-South Ridge." Saw a silhouette, moving fast. Static. Then another voice cut in, panicked, a North Gully, his heading toward the creek. Rowan clenched his teeth. His using the echoes. His circling us. Maggie pressed closer, whispering urgently, "We need thermal drones." "No," Rowan said. "He'll hear them. He wants us scattered." "What does he want, then?" Maggie hissed. Rowan swallowed hard. "He wants control." A third shot cracked from the west, firing them into motion. Rowan signaled silently, 2 fingers forward, palm slicing right. Deputies shifted positions, flanking, tightening formation. Maggie moved with him, step for step, shadow for shadow. The forest grew thicker, branches knitting overhead so tightly the sky disappeared. Only narrow slices of moonlight broke through, shivering across bark and dirt like silver veins. Rowan felt watched. Not hunted. Observed. Caleb's voice drifted again, soft, steady, eerily calm for a man with bodies buried under his feet. "You're out of your depth, detective." Rowan spun, scanning the trees. Show yourself. A low chuckle drifted from somewhere ahead. You still don't understand. Elias dug holes. I chose them. Maggie froze. Controlled burial sites, as she whispered. Calculated spacing. Geological consistency. That's why the soil layers didn't align. Rowan's flashlight quivered. He planned all of this. Oh, detective, Caleb murmured. I perfected it. Another branch snapped, closer this time. Rowan raised his weapon slowly, muscles coiled tight enough to tear. But he still couldn't see him properly, just a flicker, a movement, a whisper of shape drifting between the trees. Then the forest went silent again, unnaturally still. Until something heavy fell behind them with a dull thud. A deputy shouted, "We've got someone down." Rowan and Maggie rushed toward the sound. A beam of yellow light cut through darkness, illuminating a deputy sprawled on his side. Not shot, struck. A blunt force blow to the temple. Rowan knelt. His breathing. Where's his weapon? Gone. Maggie exhaled shakily. Caleb disarmed him in seconds. Rowan's stomach tightened. He's baiting us with injuries. Not kills. He wants us to move deeper. And deeper they went. The trail grew narrower, funnel-like. Rowan realized too late what it meant. Caleb was guiding them into a choke point. A section of forest where fallen trunks created a natural bottleneck. Cover was limited. Escape routes fewer. Maggie whispered, "This is a kill corridor." Rowan didn't answer. The air felt wrong, thick, charged, heavy with the metallic tang of something old and feral. Then Rowan saw it, a faint silhouette standing atop a fallen cedar stump about 30 feet ahead. Broad shoulders. Tall frame. Rifle in hand. Face obscured by shadow. Caleb Kellum. He stood perfectly still, watching them with a calm so cold it bordered on reverent. Not wild-eyed like Elias. Not unstable. Something far worse, measured. Intentional. Rowan raised his weapon. Hands where I can see them. Caleb didn't move. Maggie stepped beside Rowan, breathing hard. Drop the rifle, Caleb. The man tilted his head slightly, as though amused by the suggestion. You shouldn't be here, he said softly. This land has taken enough. Rowan's voice cut through the dark. You buried them. You chose the victims. Elias was a child, confused, manipulated. You groomed him. Caleb's tone sharpened. He was never a child. He was a stray. A burden. Someone had to teach him about consequences. Maggie's grip tightened on her gun. You used him. Caleb's eyes glinted. I shaped him. Rowan felt his pulse spike with anger. And Mariah? A pause. A long one. She screamed, Caleb said quietly. I don't like screaming. The woods themselves seemed to recoil. Rowan whispered, You killed her. Caleb didn't deny it. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. A bright light in a dark place. Bright lights attract attention. His hand shifted on the rifle stock, slowly, deliberately. Rowan braced. Drop it, Caleb. Caleb's voice darkened. I protected this land long before you walked into it. I buried its rot. I chose who stayed hidden. You want answers, detective? Dig deeper. You'll find more. You'll find all of them. Maggie's eyes widened with horror. Rowan took a step forward. Caleb, walk toward me. Now. For the first time, Caleb smiled. A thin, disquieting curve of the lips. You asked the wrong man to walk, he said. Then he jumped. Not forward. Not back. Straight down, behind the cedar stump. A hidden ravine. Move. Rowan shouted, sprinting toward the edge. But as he reached it, a flash of metal reflected in moonlight, Caleb's rifle barrel rising from the shadows below. A shot rang out. Rowan dove sideways, slammed into the ground, ears ringing. Maggie yelled his name somewhere behind him. Deputies scattered, returning fire into the ravine. The forest erupted into chaos, gunfire cracking like dry branches, flashlights trembling, commands echoing off the ridge. Rowan rolled behind a boulder, breath ragged, ears buzzing. He raised his weapon, searching through the dark. Dust and debris rained from nearby tree trunks as bullets carved through bark. Then the gunfire stopped. Completely. Instantly. Chillingly. Caleb's voice rose from the ravine, calm, unshaken. You chase ghosts, detective. But ghosts don't die. Rowan's fingers tightened around his weapon. Show yourself. Why? So you can bury me? Caleb laughed softly. I bury others. That's my calling. Branches cracked farther down the ravine, fast steps, deliberate movement fading into the deeper woods. He's retreating. Maggie shouted. Flanking east. Rowan vaulted over the boulder, sprinting toward Maggie. We need more units sealing the perimeter, now. Deputies scrambled to respond, but Rowan already knew the truth. Caleb Kellum knew these woods better than any map, any tracking dog, any deputy. And tonight, he wasn't running out of fear. He was repositioning. As Rowan and Maggie moved east, the trees shifted again, dense, looming, closing around them like ribs forming a cage. The deeper they went, the colder the air grew. Something large moved ahead. Rowan raised his weapon. Maggie, slow. They crept forward, branches whispering overhead. Then, in a clearing barely visible under thin moonlight, they found something that froze them in their tracks. A structure. Old. Half collapsed. Not a shed, larger. Maybe once a cabin. And on its shattered door, another pendant symbol. Deep. Deliberate. Fresh. Maggie whispered, he is marking territory. He wants us here. Rowan stepped closer, pulse hammering. From behind the cabin, a voice drifted, closer than ever, low enough to raise goosebumps along his arms. If you want the truth, detective, come inside. Rowan inhaled sharply. Caleb Kellum wasn't just a killer. He was staging something. Something final. The cabin's silhouette rose from the clearing like a skeleton half-pulled from the earth, crooked beams jutting out at odd angles, roof sagging under decades of rot. Yet the symbol carved into the door, sharp, fresh, deliberate, glowed under the flashlight beam with a vicious clarity that didn't match the decay surrounding it. A mark of ownership. A summoning. A dare. Rowan stood still, breath shallow, every instinct screaming that the structure was a trap. But he also knew Caleb wanted him to think that. The older man didn't operate with brute force. He operated with psychology, pressure, manipulation, fear. Everything tonight was a performance. Rowan was certain of it now. Each gunshot, each whisper, each sudden appearance and disappearance, they weren't random outbursts of violence. They were choreography. Caleb Kellum wasn't running. He was conducting. Maggie muttered, "He is watching us. He could be anywhere." Her flashlight swept the tree line, beam trembling slightly. Rowan stepped closer to the cabin door. The wood groaned under his touch, flakes peeling off like dead skin. He wants to control the narrative. He wants us to enter on his terms. One wrong step and the whole place might collapse, a Maggie warned. Which is exactly why he chose it, a Rowan murmured. A twig snapped to their left. Both swung their weapons instantly, barrels aimed, eyes sharp. Nothing. Just darkness swallowing the edges of their sight. Then, faintly, a voice slithered through the trees. "Careful, detective, some doors once opened cannot be closed." Maggie cursed under her breath. Rowan swallowed, pulse steadying through force of will. "Caleb, come out where I can see you." Silence answered. The absence of sound was worse than the taunts. It was intentional. Caleb wanted them uncertain, turning in circles, questioning shadows. Rowan steadied his grip on his weapon and pushed the cabin door slowly. Hinges screeched in protest, a long, rusty wail that carried too far into the night. Inside, darkness pooled in every corner. The air was stale, thick with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic, almost sweet. Maggie covered her mouth with her sleeve. Rowan stepped over broken boards, flashlight slicing across debris, collapsed furniture, shredded insulation, claw marks etched into the interior walls. Claw marks. Not random scratches. Vertical. Deep. Desperate. Maggie whispered, "This wasn't just a hideout." Rowan finished the thought with a chill. Someone was kept here. His flashlight drifted toward the far corner, toward a rust-coated chain bolted into the floor. Toward a manacle. Toward a second one beside it. A shiver rippled up his spine. Caleb's cruelty wasn't just reactive. It was structured. Methodical. Practiced. Something crunched under Rowan's boot. He knelt and picked up a small object, metallic, thin, rigid. A tooth. Human. Old. Maggie gagged quietly. "My God." Then a soft, rhythmic tapping echoed above them. Not from outside. From the loft. Rowan raised his flashlight. The fragile ladder leading to the loft had snapped years ago, but something shifted in the shadows above, slow, deliberate, like fingertips brushing old boards. Maggie whispered, "He's up there." "No," Rowan said quietly. "He wants us to think he's up there." The tapping continued, steady now, like a metronome. Rowan circled beneath the loft, scanning the ceiling, the walls, the corners. His light caught movement, a flicker of fabric. Then a whisper fell directly behind them. "You learn quickly, detective." Rowan spun around. Maggie too. Both flashlights slashed through the dark. But no one was there. The tapping stopped. Silence collapsed over the cabin like a heavy blanket. Then footsteps pounded outside, deputies shouting. A boom of brush being trampled. A dog barking violently. Maggie ran toward the door. "He's on the north side." Rowan grabbed her arm. "Wait." Too late. A deafening blast smashed into the cabin wall, showering them with splinters. Not a rifle shot, an explosion of compressed air. A hunting trap. Caleb had rigged it. Maggie stumbled back, coughing through dust. Rowan shielded her as debris rained down. Another trap snapped outside, metal clamping shut with a violent clang, a deputy screaming in pain. Rowan's voice boomed through the chaos. Everyone fall back. Do not pursue blind. His booba trapped the perimeter. His radio exploded with frantic chatter. Officer down, metal shear trap, need medical now. His moving west, no, east, damn it, he's playing us. The dogs lost his scent. He doubled back. Rowan shook dust off his jacket and pushed outside. Flashlights crisscrossed wildly through the clearing, beams fractured by smoke and panic. Deputies dragged the injured officer away from a steel trap half hidden under leaves. Caleb's voice floated again, closer now, tinged with amusement. You think this is pursuit, he said softly. But this is history repeating. Rowan shouted into the darkness, You're done running. Oh no, Caleb replied. You are. A gunshot cracked from the tree line. Deputies ducked. Maggie fired back. Rowan advanced slowly, calculating angles, listening not to the shots but to the pauses between them. Caleb didn't fire to kill. He fired to guide. We're being moved, Rowan muttered. He's steering us. Steering us where? Maggie asked. Rowan scanned the forest, then froze. Toward the creek bed. Toward the burial site. Toward the truth Caleb wanted control over. Rowan's stomach tightened. He wants a finale. Maggie's voice dropped. A confession? Rowan shook his head. A stage. They moved in formation toward the creek, weapons ready, lights cutting through thickening fog. The forest grew colder, sound swallowed by the weight of the trees. Rowan felt the hairs on his arms rise. Caleb was here. Watching. Waiting. Then the fog parted. And Rowan saw him. Caleb Kellum stood on a rock ledge overlooking the creek, rifle lowered at his side. Moonlight cut across his face, calm, composed, utterly unhinged in the serenity of a man who had accepted what he was. He spoke without raising his voice, yet his words carried with chilling clarity. You've dug up pieces, he said. But not the whole picture. Rowan stepped forward. Then tell us. Caleb smiled faintly. Truth isn't told. It's shown. He pointed to the soil beneath his feet. Rowan's breath caught. Fresh earth. Not 20 years old. Not even 20 days. Maggie's voice trembled. He buried someone else. Rowan lifted his flashlight and froze as the beam illuminated fabric protruding from the dirt. Blue. Cotton. New. A shirt. A deputy uniform shirt. Rowan whispered, Who is it? Behind him, a radio crackled with a panicked voice. Detective Price, roll call complete. Deputy Lane is missing. Maggie's eyes widened. He took one of ours. Caleb's smile sharpened. Balance, detective. That's what the land demands. Rowan's voice dropped to a low growl. You won't hurt anyone else. Caleb tilted his head. You still think this is about harm? No. This is legacy. This is continuation. Then, almost lovingly, this is ritual. Rowan lifted his weapon. Dropped the rifle. Caleb looked at him with something disturbingly close to affection. You're the first one who ever understood the pattern, he murmured. So I leave the final stroke to you. Before Rowan could react, Caleb lifted the rifle barrel, not at Rowan, not at the deputies. At himself. No! Maggie shouted. But the trigger had already been pulled. A single shot. A hollow collapse. Caleb's body hitting the dirt with a sickening finality. Rowan ran forward, Maggie behind him, deputies closing in. Caleb lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath his head. His eyes remained open, locked on the sky as though watching something climb beyond the treetops. Maggie knelt, checking for a pulse. Nothing. Rowan stared down at the fallen man, chest heaving, mind reeling. The predator was gone. But the case. The truth. The roots under this forest. They were nowhere near finished. Because as Rowan's flashlight drifted across the clearing, he saw something carved into the rock behind Caleb's body. A number. 7. And beneath it, a shallow circle drawn in fresh blood, still glistening. A symbol Rowan had never seen on any pendant. Maggie whispered, What does it mean? Rowan didn't answer. Because deep in his gut, he felt something new rising. This wasn't the number of victims. It was the number of graves they had yet to find. The number carved into the stone seemed to pulse under the flashlight beam, as if the rock itself was breathing. 7, a single digit frozen in fresh blood, glistening like a wound the earth itself hadn't finished bleeding from. Rowan stared at it, stomach twisting with the weight of an implication so heavy it felt geological, ancient, buried, quietly monstrous. This isn't a tally, a Maggie whispered beside him, voice brittle. This is a message. Rowan didn't respond. He didn't trust his voice. The forest pressed in around them, thick, watchful, almost listening. Deputies moved across the clearing, some kneeling beside Caleb's body, others scanning the tree line with wide, unsettled eyes, as if expecting the dead man to rise and finish the ritual he'd begun. But Rowan wasn't looking at Caleb. He was looking at the ground behind him. Fresh soil. Disturbed recently. Too recently. He moved toward it, heart hammering. Maggie followed, breath quickening. Together, they knelt at the shallow patch of dirt where a piece of a deputy's uniform stuck out like a buried flag. Rowan peeled back the soil carefully, fingers trembling despite the gloves. A hand appeared first. Then fabric. Then the outline of a body curled on its side. Lane and Maggie whispered, voice cracking. But as Rowan brushed more soil away, his breath caught. The skin wasn't pale. It wasn't still. It wasn't cold. Lane's eyes snapped open, wild with terror, mouth gagged with cloth, wrists bound with rope. The deputies around them gasped, weapons half-lifted in instinct. He's alive. Rowan barked. Medical. Now. Hands rushed in, pulling Lane from the shallow grave. He coughed violently, dirt spilling from his mouth. His entire body convulsed, lungs clawing for air. Maggie steadied him, pressing a hand to his back, whispering to calm him as medics sprinted in. Rowan stared at the young deputy's trembling body, brain spiraling through possibilities. Lane had been buried alive, not to die, but to be found. Caleb wasn't finished with his ritual. His final act wasn't suicide. It was a handoff. Lane grabbed Rowan's jacket with dirt-caked fingers, voice roar and scraping. He said you'd come. Rowan leaned closer. What else did he say? Lane's eyes rolled with panic. Not him, not Caleb, the other one. The world seemed to tilt. Maggie froze. What other one? Lane's breath quivered. He said his brother would finish what he started. Rowan felt the blood drain from his face. Brother? Lane nodded weakly, eyelids fluttering. He said I was the blade, he is the hand. Medical staff lifted Lane onto a stretcher, but Rowan hardly saw them. His mind spun back through every interview with the Kellum family, every name that appeared in old records, every relative accounted for. Every one except a name missing from birth records. A guardian listed only once. A male Kellum child with no follow-up documentation. A disappearance chalked up to a custody transfer. Rowan whispered, the Kellum family tree isn't missing one branch. Maggie looked at him slowly, realization spreading across her face like frost. It's missing too. Before Rowan could speak, a deputy shouted from the far edge of the clearing. Detective Price, we've got movement on the South Trail. Rowan snapped to attention, hand instinctively going to his weapon. Is it Caleb's body? No, sir. Caleb's still here. This is someone else, tall male, moving fast toward the river. The river. The deepest part of the forest. The longest escape route. Or the best vantage point. Move. Rowan ordered. They plunged into the woods, flashlights bouncing, boots pounding through underbrush. The forest, thick as iron, swallowed their footsteps in damp moss and old roots. Rowan pushed branches aside, eye scanning every shadow. Maggie matched his pace, jaw clenched, adrenaline driving her forward. The South Trail narrowed into a low corridor of twisted cedar limbs. Rowan ducked under a branch and froze when he saw something dangling from it. A piece of rope. Freshly cut. Still warm. Maggie inhaled sharply. His seconds ahead of us. Rowan inspected the rope. The strands were sliced cleanly. No tearing. No fray. Just one precise cut. His not running, a Rowan muttered. His guiding. To what? Maggie asked. Rowan didn't answer, because the answer revealed itself. Up ahead, the river glimmered faintly under moonlight, water frothing as it rushed through a rocky choke point. Mist rose from its surface in thin, ghostly sheets. A figure stood on the boulder overlooking the river, a tall silhouette with shoulders broader than Caleb's, posture straighter, movements less frantic. The man turned slightly, just enough for moonlight to carve one half of his face from shadow. Not Caleb. A different face. Younger. Sharper. Colder. Stop right there. Rowan shouted. The man didn't flinch. He simply watched them approach, eyes unreadable, jaw steady. Maggie exhaled, a tremor running through her. So that's Caleb's brother. The stranger finally spoke, voice smooth and measured, the polar opposite of Caleb's taunting drawl. He shouldn't have carved the number yet. It wasn't time. Rowan raised his weapon. Who are you? The man smiled faintly. You've been digging. You already know. A name. Rowan barked. He tilted his head. Clayton. Rowan's stomach clenched. Another sea name. Another ghost in the family tree. But this one wasn't hidden like Elias, nor exiled like Caleb. Clayton Kellum had erased himself. Maggie's finger tightened on her trigger. Step away from the ledge. Clayton didn't move. You killed my brother. He shot himself, Rowan growled. Clayton shrugged. Semantics. You brought the storm. You pushed him to it. Rowan took a step forward. Clayton, Lane tells us Caleb said you would finish what he started. What does that mean? Clayton smiled again, slow, unsettling. Why do you assume Caleb started anything? Rowan froze. Maggie whispered, "Oh my God." Clayton stepped off the rock, walking toward them, hands loose at his sides, posture relaxed, almost casual. Caleb was dedicated, he said. But he lacked discipline. He grew sloppy. Emotional. He kept trophies. Left marks. Carved symbols. Decorated burial sites. A craftsman should not crave attention. Rowan felt something cold grip the base of his spine. You're the one who taught him. Clayton nodded once. And Elias. Both were eager students. Maggie's voice dropped to a chilled whisper. How many victims, Clayton? He looked amused. You think the number is 7? Rowan's breath caught. Maggie whispered, Dear God. Clayton raised a finger to his lips. Sure. You'll disturb the forest. Rowan stepped forward. Clayton, you need to come with us. Right now. Clayton smiled. Then he reached into his jacket. Rowan lifted his gun instantly. Don't. Clayton withdrew something small, a metal object glinting under moonlight. A whistle. He lifted it to his lips and blew. Rowan heard nothing. But the forest did. The dogs stationed at the northern perimeter erupted in frantic barking. Deputies shouted. Branches cracked in rapid succession. Too many footsteps, too spread out, too chaotic. Maggie spun, shouting into her radio, all units. Unknown activation. Possible ambush. Prepare for. Static swallowed her words. Lights across the forest flickered. Radios died one by one. The night thickened like ink. Clayton lowered the whistle. Time to separate the hunters, he murmured. Rowan lunged forward, but Clayton turned and sprinted toward the river's edge, not hesitating before leaping into the churning water. His body vanished instantly, swallowed by foam and current. Rowan. Maggie shouted. Don't. But Rowan was already moving, heart pounding with a clarity sharper than fear. Clayton wasn't running. He was leading. And if Rowan didn't follow the current now, the forest would claim more bodies before dawn. The cold case wasn't just a cold case. It was a kingdom. And Clayton Kellum was its king. The river swallowed Clayton in one violent breath, churning him into the dark as if the water had been waiting for him. Rowan sprinted to the bank, boots skidding across wet stones, flashlight beam slicing over black water frothing under the moon. The current was too fast, too loud, too thick with debris to track a human shape. Still, Rowan waded in knee-deep, ignoring the icy bite that plunged through his muscles. Maggie grabbed his arm, voice sharp with panic. Rowan, stop. You jump in that water. It'll drag you under. He can't get away. Rowan snapped back. His not getting away, a Maggie hissed. His leading you. The river roared louder, as though punctuating her words. Rowan froze, breath heaving, listening past the water, past the wind, past the distant shouts of deputies. Clayton's last look before jumping hadn't been fear. It was invitation. Rowan stepped back from the water slowly. Maggie exhaled, shaking from a cocktail of adrenaline and dread. Call units a priver, a Rowan said, wiping water from his hands. And Dan River. Is not a swimmer, he's a tactician. He has exit points. Maggie was already on the radio, but static chewed through every transmission. Repeat not receiving need perimeter. Copy? Copy? Nothing. Just the low, pulsing hum of interference. That whistle, as she muttered. It didn't just spook the K9s. He triggered something. Some kind of jammer. The forest lights flickered again. Radios buzzed with empty noise. Rowan's jaw tightened. He cut our communication lines. He wants us blind. A deputy stumbled toward them from the south trail, panting. Detective Price, units are reporting shadows moving near the west ridge. Multiple sightings. We think Clayton doubled back. How many shadows? Rowan demanded. The deputy swallowed. 4. No. 5. Hard to tell. They moved too fast. Maggie's blood ran cold. You think he's working alone? Rowan didn't answer. The earlier silence on the line, the trapped dog teams, the simultaneous movement calls, Clayton had coordination. Whether it was a network, an echo of old students, or something else entirely, Rowan couldn't yet tell. But he felt it. The hunt had changed shape. He scanned the forest, senses burning, sealing every detail, broken branches, fresh mud prints, disturbed roots. Clayton's escape route wasn't random. It was a corridor cut into the land by familiarity and intent. He's pulling us toward higher ground, a Rowan murmured. That means vantage points. Overlooks. Places where the river bends. Maggie's eyes widened. The limestone ridge. Rowan nodded once. They ran. Branches slapped across their jackets, leaves tore under their boots, roots clawed at their ankles. A forest canopy thickened overhead, swallowing moonlight, turning everything into a distorted labyrinth of shadows and doubt. A scream cracked through the night. Rowan skidded to a stop. Not an animal scream. Human. Short. Choked off mid-breath. Northwest. Maggie yelled, flashlight slicing through blackness. They sprinted toward the sound, lungs burning. Deputies converged from separate trails, faces ghost-white in the dim light. Then they found him. A deputy hung suspended in the crook of a tree trunk, rope tight across his chest, feet dangling inches above the ground. Not dead, barely conscious. A makeshift snare trap pinned him upright like a warning display. Rowan cut him down quickly. The man collapsed to his knees, wheezing. What happened? Rowan demanded. The deputy's voice cracked. Someone dropped from the branches. Fast. Too fast. He tied the rope behind me, looped it, threw his weight back, before I even turned around. Rowan felt his pulse spike. Clayton? The deputy shook his head weakly. No. Taller. Maggie's stomach dropped. Taller than Clayton? The man nodded, terrified. And silent. Like he didn't even breathe. Rowan exchanged a grim look with Maggie. There's someone else. Another Kellum? Another student? Another ghost the forest hadn't given up yet? Rowan forced the question down. They didn't have time to process unknown threats. We need thermal scanners. Maggie shouted. No, Rowan said firmly. Thermal won't work. The jamming frequency is covering heat signatures. We're blind. And if he planned this, Maggie whispered, he knew exactly where we'd run. Rowan inhaled sharply. Then we stop running. He raised his flashlight and scanned the treetops, speaking more to the forest than anyone else. Clayton, you wanted a stage. I'm here. Silence. Then, a faint rustle overhead. A figure moved along a thick branch, shadowed, agile, slipping between trunks as though the forest had grown him from its roots. Rowan lifted his gun, but the figure vanished again, melting backward into darkness. Deputies whispered, panicked. Maggie pressed shoulder to shoulder with Rowan. Tell me you saw that, she breathed. I saw it, Rowan murmured. And it wasn't Caleb's brother. A voice drifted down, not from ahead, but above. A good teacher never works alone. Rowan spun around. Clayton. Enough. The voice answered from another angle, low and almost bored. You assume too much, detective. Rowan gritted his teeth. Show yourself. Why? The voice asked. You came here to see the truth. But truth lives in depth, not surface. Branches creaked overhead. Look beyond Caleb, the voice continued. Beyond Elias. Beyond the graves you found. Rowan shouted back, how many, Clayton? Wrong question, the voice replied softly. Ask instead, how long? Rowan's stomach twisted. How long what? How long the Kellam line has been tending this forest? The words hit like a punch. Maggie whispered, horrified, this isn't a ritual he started. It's one he inherited. Rowan's beam jerked upward. Clayton, he roared. Enough riddles. Come down here, Anne. A branch cracked sharply. Feet landed behind them. Too close. Too fast. Rowan pivoted, gun raised, but something slammed into him from the side, knocking him into the dirt. His vision blurred as weight pressed onto his chest, a hand gripping his throat with crushing precision. A face loomed inches above his. Not Clayton. And not Caleb. Someone older. Stronger. Eyes dead and unblinking, like a predator that had long forgotten humanity. Maggie fired twice, shots sparking off bark as the figure vaulted backward with inhuman grace, disappearing into the dark as though the forest absorbed him. Rowan coughed violently, dragging air into bruised lungs. Maggie hauled him up. Oh my God, Rowan, are you? I'm fine, he rasped. Where did he go? Deputies scanned frantically, but the forest had gone silent again. No footsteps. No rustling. Not even breath in the air. His not running, Rowan said. His positioning. Who was that? Maggie whispered. Rowan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Clayton had said brother. But family trees don't always record everything. Not every birth is documented. Not every disappearance is noticed. Another Kellam. One older. One hidden. One who had taught Clayton, who had shaped Caleb, who had overseen Elias. One the forest itself seemed to protect. Rowan forced himself upright. We keep moving. We find him. Maggie shook her head. Rowan, this doesn't feel like a manhunt anymore. No, Rowan said quietly. It feels like we walked into someone else's territory. Deputies regrouped, forming a tighter perimeter. The woods seemed to close around them, shadows drawing closer with every breath. Rowan raised his flashlight again, and froze. Another marking was carved into the trunk directly in front of him. Fresh. Deep. As though carved seconds earlier. A circle. A vertical line through it. A second line intersecting the first. A crude crosshair. Maggie's voice trembled. That's not Caleb's symbol. No, Rowan whispered. This one belongs to whoever came before him. A twig snapped behind them. Then a voice, calm, anciently calm, spoke from the dark. You are not hunters. A pause. You are trespassers. The word trespassers drifted through the trees like smoke, thin and venomous, sinking into every crevice of the forest. Rowan's pulse jolted, a hard, primal thud against his ribs, the kind that doesn't come from fear but from recognition that something older, deeper, and infinitely more dangerous had stepped into the open. Flashlights jerked as deputies spun toward the source of the voice. But the beam caught only trees, thick trunks twisted under decades of growth, branches tangled like veins. Nothing moved. Yet Rowan felt the presence. Heavy. Grounded. Watching from angles the human I wasn't built to track. Maggie whispered, Rowan is surrounding us. No, Rowan said quietly. He is the surroundings. A shadow slipped between cedars, too tall, too broad-shouldered, too fluid to be Clayton. A figure paused at the edge of the light, just long enough for Rowan to see the outline of a jaw hardened by age, a body sculpted by work and wilderness, and eyes, black, still, reflective like obsidian. Not Caleb. Not Clayton. Not Elias. This was someone else. Someone untouched by the panic of the hunt, unshaken by death, unimpacted by exposure. A Kellam older than Caleb. Older than the records. Older than the graves Rowan had seen. A man raised by the forest. A man who worshipped it. A man who believed in its rituals. Maggie's hand hovered at her trigger. Identify yourself. The man didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He stepped forward into full light with the calm certainty of a ruler returning to his throne. My name is irrelevant, he said. Names are for the ones the world sees. Rowan raised his weapon. You're part of this family. You taught them. You made them. The man studied Rowan for a long moment. I refined them. Maggie's voice cracked. How many victims? Victims? The man smiled faintly. No. Offerings. Rowan's stomach turned. You murdered innocent people. I returned them to the earth, the man whispered. The way our line has always done. Rows of officers stiffened. Guns raised. Breath held. But something about the man's presence, his posture, his voice, his eerie stillness, made even trained law enforcement hesitate. Rowan forced himself a step forward. Clayton jumped into the river. Caleb is dead. Elias is in custody. It's over. The man shook his head slowly. You misunderstand, detective. Caleb was a branch. Clayton was a branch. Elias was a branch. His eyes darkened, swallowing the flashlight reflection. I am the root. Silence tightened around them like a noose. Rowan's voice hardened. Then you're coming with us. The man stepped closer, and the forest seemed to bend with him. Leaves rustled without wind. Shadows shifted without movement. The hair on Rowan's arms rose, every instinct screaming that what stood before him wasn't just a suspect. It was an embodiment of a lineage. You brought fire into my woods, the man said softly. Now you'll feel what fire does when it breathes. His hand moved, not fast, not sharp, but smooth, like a tree branch falling under its own weight. Yet somehow, impossibly, he closed the distance before Rowan could blink. Rowan barely raised his weapon before the man struck his wrist with one open palm. Pain shot up his arm as the gun flew from his grip. Maggie fired twice, shots cracking through the clearing, but the man was already gone, slipping sideways between trunks like a phantom. Deputies shouted, beams flaring wildly. South side, movement. No, east side. His doubling back. Rowan snatched Maggie's arm. His not running, his spreading us out. Don't break formation. But panic had already loosened their lines. Officers sprinted in different directions, chasing flickers of shadow that vanished the second a flashlight swung near. Rowan steadied his breathing, forcing his senses to sharpen, to listen, not for footsteps but for the absence of them. Not for movement but for weight shifts in the earth. The man moved like he knew every inch of land, every rut, every creaking branch. Because he did. A deputy screamed suddenly, a short, strangled cry cut off in an instant. Rowan and Maggie whirled toward the sound, racing through thick brush until they reached a narrow gully. A deputy lay on the ground, gasping, a blood-dark line around his neck where a rope had snapped tight and then loosened. He pointed upward, eyes wide with shock. He pulled me off my feet from above. Rowan raised his flashlight, but the branches overhead were still. Completely still. This isn't possible, a Maggie whispered. Every tree is a ladder, a Rowan said hoarsely. Every shadow is a doorway for him. A radio popped with distorted static. Price do you copy intruder heading northwest? The rest dissolved into garbled noise. Maggie tried her unit. Control, respond. Control, do you read? Nothing. Just the low hum of interference, thickening the air like humidity. Rowan clenched his fists. He's killing our comms. Hurting us. He wants isolation. He scanned the tree line again, and saw movement. A tall silhouette perched high on a branch, watching them with unnerving calm. Up there! Rowan shouted. He fired. Maggie fired. Deputies fired. The bark exploded. Branches shattered. The figure leaped. Not down, forward. 30 feet in a single bound, landing silently in a patch of moss before melting back into darkness. Maggie's voice cracked. Rowan humans don't move like that. No, Rowan muttered. But predators do. Another scream echoed through the woods, this one further away, raw and terrified. Deputies sprinted toward it, Rowan and Maggie rushing behind. They emerged into a clearing lit only by fractured moonlight. And froze. A circle of stones. Large. Ancient. Arranged with impossible symmetry. In the center, an uprooted tree trunk carved with symbols Rowan had seen only once, on the rock beside Caleb's body. Maggie whispered, this is a ritual site. Rowan scanned the carvings, circles, lines, slashes, intersecting patterns. Not random. Not chaotic. Coded. Layered. A map. A story. A family history carved into wood and stone. Step by step, Rowan approached the center. The ground beneath his boots felt softer, disturbed recently. Soil freshly overturned. A faint scent of iron lingered. He knelt beside a small mound. Hand trembling, he brushed away the top layer of dirt. Fabric. Blue. Thin. Modern. Another uniform. Not Lane's. Rowan felt his pulse stutter. He took someone else. Who? Maggie demanded. Rowan didn't know, until a deputy limped into the clearing, coat torn, face streaked with blood. It's Deputy Collins, he gasped. He didn't make the perimeter check. Maggie clapped a hand over her mouth. Rowan's vision darkened at the edges. He stood slowly, scanning the clearing, mind racing, every nerve taut. Clayton's message. Caleb's warning. Elias's fear. He taught me. He watched me. He never left. Before Rowan could speak, something shifted behind him. He turned. The man stood at the opposite edge of the clearing, illuminated by a single break in the canopy. Moonlight clung to him like armor. You found what he left unfinished, the man said. But you have not earned the ending. Rowan raised his weapon. It ends now. No, the man murmured. Now the forest chooses. He lifted a hand. Not in violence, but in offering. And the ground trembled. Rowan staggered backward as a section of soil collapsed, revealing a wide, ancient pit camouflaged by leaves. A cavity so deep Rowan couldn't see the bottom. Maggie screamed his name. But Rowan's boot slipped. He fell. Air punched from his lungs as he hit the dirt slope, sliding down, grasping for roots, rocks, anything. Then a hand caught his wrist. Maggie. Rowan. Hold on. He dangled over the pit, darkness yawning beneath him like a waiting mouth. Above them, the man watched silently, head tilted with faint curiosity, as though this too was a ritual he'd witnessed 1,000 times. Deputies swarmed, grabbing Maggie's waist, pulling her backward, anchoring her. With a violent heave, Rowan was hauled up from the edge, sprawling onto the ground, chest heaving. When he lifted his head, the man was gone. Not a sound. Not a broken twig. Not a footprint. Only the whisper of leaves reclaiming space. A deputy gasped. Where did he go? Rowan stared at the dark corridor of trees, heart pounding with the rhythm of a truth too large to swallow. He's been here longer than we've been alive, Rowan said softly. He knows every escape. Maggie sat beside him, shaking. Rowan, what do we tell them? The department? The families? The state? Rowan looked at the symbols carved into the tree trunk, the circle of stones, the missing deputy, the pit, the endless forest stretching beyond them like a living organism protecting its lineage. We tell them the cold case is open, Rowan murmured. Wider than ever. Maggie swallowed. And the man we saw tonight? Rowan rose unsteadily to his feet, flashlight trembling as he aimed it toward the forest's black horizon. He's not a suspect, Rowan said. He's not even a fugitive. A long pause. Then, with a voice hollowed by dread. Here's a beginning. The wind stirred. Branches whispered. Somewhere deep in the woods, a single whistle note, soft, haunting, familiar, floated on the air. Rowan closed his eyes. Cold cases don't end. They shift. They breathe. They evolve. And this one had roots.